7 o'clock. I'd like to call this Shelby County Board meeting March 11th to order. We'll start out with the prayer led by Gary Patterson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, please be with all of us as we gather here to do business and make decisions for Shelby County. Please be with us as we discuss the current decisions we need to make tonight. Show us how to cooperate and respect each other as we make the best decisions. Lord, only you know the future and what direction we will take tonight. Help us to be good listeners and to do our best. May your love surround us, your spirit guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if I can have a roll call, please.
Earl Baker.
Present.
Kitty Barr.
Here.
Barbara Bennett. Mark Bennett.
Here.
Paul Candidate. Brian Kaufman.
Here.
Dennis Durnovich.
Here.
Jesse Durbin.
Here.
Gary Gergany.
Here.
Rod Hyde.
Here.
Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Patrick Lyons.
Present.
Terry Metzger.
Here.
Bobby Orman.
Present.
Gary Patterson.
Here.
Gary Piercy.
Here.
John Poe.
Here.
Robert Simpson.
Here.
Jeff Slifer.
Here.
David Switz.
Yeah.
Don Tate.
Here.
Lynn Williams.
Here.
Okay, you all have the minutes from the last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
No.
Hold on, we can go discussion.
On page 3, the fourth paragraph from the bottom.
Yeah,
The passed failed.
the verbiage is which passed failed, which is, it was a failed vote.
I think also, if you look at that, the record shows that I voted both ways. One of them I did.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll fix both of those.
Any other?
Yeah, I would like to say that, so that's going to be fixed. If every board member agrees to those changes, then I would recommend a second, and then also I would recommend the passage of the minutes.
So motion to approve the changes.
I'll motion to approve the changes.
I get a second to approve the changes.
Here,
Patterson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we need a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second. John takes seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, so now, normally we'd have public body comment. What I want to do here is I want to move chairman updates right above public body comment. I have a few things that I need to address before we get started and moving into the meeting. But upon some research in the Robert's Rules, we found that a vote must be taken to stop debate if a called vote is called for. In other words, if a member calls a question and there's debate happening, that call to question has to be voted on and passed by a 2/3 vote. That's Robert's Rules. So I just want to update you on that. And the same goes with any other motion that stops debate. So motion table, et cetera, et cetera. Moving forward, I just wanted to reiterate something, that public body comment is public body comment. We had an extremely long meeting last month, and if we eliminate the dialogue issue between the public body and ourselves, then we can mitigate the time. They have the right to speak to anything they want to. Be advised, listen, and let your vote talk. Furthermore, in chairman updates, I'd just like to put this out for everybody to know. I'm looking at combining some committees, that which would be EMA, zoning, public buildings, and animal control. Combining those committees would basically make a large committee, makes it easier to have a quorum, and also makes it easier to disperse information between members and not have a quorum. 3-member committees makes it very difficult to have intellectual discussion between committee members and not have a quorum. So anyway, that is what I'm going to present at the next meeting. I just want to put that out there so nobody's blindsided. And lastly, in this part, I'm going to basically pause agenda items 7 through 10, bring 11, 12, 13 to right below 6. I have a feeling 7 through 10 could be a lengthy part of discussion. These other items need to be addressed so those people can get on their evening too. So, with that said, I'd like to move on to everybody comment. Question, Gary.
Just what were those 4 committees again you were going to combine?
I would like to propose that we combine animal control, zoning, EMA, and
Public bills.
public buildings. So now I'd like to open up the floor for public body comment. Steve, I've got one right behind you real quick.
So last meeting, Chris tabled the farm sale, and I noticed that untabling isn't on the agenda. You have to untable it before you go about any of these other things.
That's a good question. I am not versed enough to reply.
I'm not voting on the Zoom motion.
But it's business pertaining to the farm. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's my question. The farm sale was tabled, and it hasn't been untabled, and they're already talking about doing other licensing agreements, so does the farm sale have to untable to move on to other things? And then the other question I have is, was the audit finished, and did we go over the $50,000 from last time?
No, the audit is not done, and I don't presume we're going to go over the 50,000.
Thank you.
And Steve, you were.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to see a quick update. I know it's a lot of meetings, I want to be short, on our COVID vaccination efforts. So far today, since basically January 13th, 2 months in, we've administered 2,147 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, Moderna. Of that, 1,495 were first doses and 652 were second doses. Monday, on March 8th, we did a drive-up clinic with our most elderly and most vulnerable population, 75 and older. 400 people we did, and we were only able to do that thanks to Representative Halbrook and Senator Chapin Rose increasing vaccines for local health departments in central Illinois. For a long time, we were only getting 200 doses a week. We can do easy 360 vaccinations a week. We're running right now Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. To basically do 400 people on that one day, we pre-registered the whole 400. We did all the paperwork in advance. So when the people came, all they had to do was sign their name and look at the EUA, and that's a fact sheet, and get their vaccination. And also on that clinic, we rescheduled them for April the 5th to get their second doses, and then they will be done. I know people want their vaccinations. We're working as hard as we can. We appreciate your patience. So we're actually now going to roll out a new clinic on the 17th and 18th at the Lake Shelbyville Dam site. And we're bringing in the National Guard for that. And we're planning to do 800 doses on the 17th and 800 doses on the 18th, 1,600 doses of Johnson & Johnson, one dose in your Bond vaccine. We tend to put out a press release maybe either tomorrow or as soon as our link is active to register. Even if you've been registered on with the health department, you're going to have to re-register. This is a complete electronic system called EM-Track. And we're going to run that clinic from 9 to 6. And as soon as that link is live, you'll be able to go on, register for the appointment times that you want. And we appreciate the Army Corps of Engineers working with us on this, and the Sheriff's Department to provide security and traffic control. And hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have an additional 1,600 more people vaccinated in the county. And that was just with the health department, but there's probably another 1,200 people who've been vaccinated too in the county through their employers and that, through healthcare and stuff like that. So that's what's going on. Any questions? All right, so as soon as that press release as it comes out, I'll send it to all the board members and the first responders. I'll send it to the media, and the people can go online. It's open to Phase 1B and Phase 1B plus, 65 and older, and then also anybody that's an essential worker, doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you're above 16 years of age, and anybody that has under 65 that has some comorbidities, basically diabetes, asthma, obesity, overweight, smoker, can go ahead and get that vaccine. So it's one and done. So I'll send that out, and if anybody has any questions, they can call the office. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other public body comment? Yes, ma'am.
Some of the board members left at the last meeting, and they left before the meeting was adjourned. And I know the meetings have gone long lately, but you're elected to participate and to be there in the entire meeting. And I thought it was very disrespectful for people to leave for your constituents as well as for the colleagues. And if you're not going to fill your seat and be there for the whole meeting, maybe you should make room for somebody who does. Another point of interest is there's some legal debate about should you get paid for the meeting if you're not there for the entire meeting. There's other people that would choose your position, want to fill them, and I just think if you have a legitimate need to leave early, it's understandable, but for everybody to just get up when public comment started last time and leave was very rude and disrespectful to the citizens that sit here and listen to all these meetings.
Amen. Thank you. Right.
Just a clarification, you're going to open up public comment before you get to item 7, I understand, is that correct? Is that your intention?
We'll readdress public comment before those.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wondered if we could get an update on the forensic audit, where that's at. We haven't heard anything about that in a while, and
Just heard from John Vandenberg today. He was given more documents than he anticipated. He is now into tax season, and he is not going to be done until the end of May.
the only comment I would make to that was one of the concerns that I think some of us as taxpaying citizens have with hiring a certified public accountant that does those kinds of taxes, as opposed to a person that had a master's in governmental accounting that would have been pulled away from this kind of a situation for tax season.
Any other public body comment on items on the agenda? 5, 6. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, number 7, Joe Shelby, Shelby State Bank. Presentation of county farm licensing agreement. I don't understand why we need to bring in a third party. Why can't this be settled here? And why would we want to license it when we could sell it, put the money into the investments, follow the investment rule book? Otherwise, in a year or two, we're coming back and doing all this all over again. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no other public body comment, I'd like to move on to item 5, Beth Martz, CDFO program.
Hello, Board. It's grant season again, so I'm here to ask the Board to pass an ordinance to provide public transportation in Shelby County and file a grant on behalf of Christian, Clay, Fayette, Montgomery, and Moultrie County as well. I have their ordinances. They have passed their ordinances and signed their intergovernmental agreements. I just need you guys to pass the ordinance, sign all the intergovernmental agreements, the purchase of service agreement with CEFS to continue to provide that service for you. And then there's a vehicle lease agreement, which just states that the grants that we write on your behalf to get the vehicles, that we can use them for the public transportation service. And then there's a memorandum of understanding with Effingham County, and that allows us to use both counties' vehicles as needed to provide service in the 7-county region. And I did want to mention, we did get a reduction in our downstate operating assistance grant. The new amount for that is, I think it was reduced by 9%. And what they did was, with the governor's budget, they looked to see those grantees that did not meet their full match to draw down the full allotment, and they put us back to the previous year's allotment. So we did not get the increase for this year. I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Let me see if you have any questions for me.
I'm going to approve.
Kenny Barr makes a motion to approve the ordinance and resolutions as presented. And a second, Gary Gertie seconds. Any more discussion or questions for Beth while she's here? Hearing none. This is not an actual.
How is the reception of that in the community as people riding the buses?
We've had a 117% increase last quarter, fiscal quarter, from the first 3 months of when COVID hit. When we had all the shutdowns, we limited the passengers on the buses. That's still in effect, so we can maintain social distancing. But we limited it to essential trips only, which were medical, nutritional, and employment. We loosened those restrictions in June, and so people are slowly starting to come back. We're still down about 60% from what we were pre-COVID, but they are coming back, and a huge part of that is our contracts with the human service providers, like Shelby County Community Services, FACO, those providers. They were instructed, to close their facilities, and therefore we lost those contracts. Those are a huge amount of our units. So that really didn't our units. I would say the public riders stayed fairly strong throughout that time with the contracts with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I do not believe this is a money spending ordinance or anything like this.
It's a pass-through. We write the grants. You guys are the grantee. It just comes through, passes through from you guys to us to provide the service.
I'll call a roll call vote anyway. Just for the sake of argument.
Earl Baker.
Yes.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Canday.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Dennis Durbich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Rod Height.
Yes.
Larry Lenz.
Yeah.
Patrick Lyons.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Mormon.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Piercy.
Yes.
John Pope.
Yep.
Robert Simpson.
Yeah.
Jeff Slifer. David Switz.
Yeah.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, guys.
Next, I'd like to
I'll talk to you
bring
soon. Okay.
Alan Spessard, Highway Engineer, to the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I have one agreement and some updates and highlights. Previous. The agreement I have is between the Illinois Department of Transportation and Shelby County for the funding for a bridge in Flat Branch Township. It's currently closed. It's located at 1100 E 2525 North. Last month, the board passed a resolution for funding that is an attachment to this agreement. I didn't have it available to go over last month at the county board meeting, so I'm doing it now. The bridge is scheduled to be bid in Springfield on April 23rd because it has federal funds in it. So I'm recommending entering into this agreement.
I have a motion to. I'll make a motion. Brian Kaufman moves. Pat Line seconds. Any discussion on this request for approval? Don?
You say 1100 east or 100 east?
1100.
Okay, but Sarah, the agenda says 100 east.
Okay, that's incorrect.
Any other discussion on
Yeah.
request for approval?
Just for the clerk's purpose, just when our minutes come up next month, to put 1100 instead of.
Oh, I'll put that in a minute, yeah.
Thank you.
That's my error.
Hearing no more discussion, all in favor of the joint agreement with IDOT, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, just some updates. I've been talking about Mount Harris Road for a long time, and it was bid on March 5th. The low and only bidder was Hal Paving. The bid was $912,824.02. The estimated cost was $1.124 million. So it's considerably under the estimate, and it will be awarded by Illinois Department of Transportation because it was a contract with them, between them and Hal Paving, so there's no action by the board. It's a 30-workday project and about 2.9 full-time equivalent staffing required. The bridge in Rose Township is approved to be bid on June 11th. That's an 8-ton posted bridge. I have locations for all of these projects on the project list that was sent out to you. The railroad crossing in Todds Point Road, Todds Point Township is scheduled for July 2nd bid at the Highway Department. The Westervelt Bridge is a $1 million grant major bridge program scheduled for November 5th of this year. The Country Club Road, or I call it the Country Club Road project, which is a $1.7 million grant project, is scheduled for January of 2022. I think I've mentioned that we are now currently under bridge inspections throughout the west part of the county. This month and next month, they're due. So my staff is inspecting bridges. I have, as I mentioned before, we have a project list that I've sent out separately, and it's also attached to the meeting notes when you get that. Please look at it. I've added locations to those projects, and I've also added staffing requirements to those projects. That's my report. Yes, sir.
Any update on the 2756 north on the engineering?
I have no update on that. All I know is that they're working on it.
Still working on it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Alan while he's up here?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to skip on down to item 11, Brian Kaufman with the Insurance Committee. You have the floor.
The insurance committee met last week with Terry, Erica was there, and members of the Pareto and the county, the co-associate. We're trying to clean up some language in the insurance. It was sent, that language was sent to you guys with the insurance committee meeting minutes. Did you see that? Do you need me to read it? Would you like for me to read it?
If you would, or
Feel like
is it long?
first grade. It's just a small amendment to the continuation of coverage. It will be amended to read, what it reads now, amended to this, we approve. Employer-approved leave of absence not meeting the definition of FMLA. Coverage will continue to the end of the month following a maximum of 180 days of absence. This runs concurrently with continuation during FMLA. If FMLA has been exhausted, this employer-approved leave of absence continuation will continue only to the end of the month following a total of 180 days of absence, including those days covered under FMLA. So after 180 days of absence, they will be, correct me if I misspeak here, please, they'll be put to COBRA insurance, so they'll still be insured, but they'll go to COBRA.
They will have the option for COBRA or not be covered under the county plan.
So we're asking for approval of this amendment. Nicole did look at it and saw nothing that would cause any issues with it. So I guess what I'm looking for is somebody to, I don't want to make the motion, if somebody would make the motion.
I've got Terry Metzger up front here with a motion to approve the language changes in outline seconds. Any discussion, any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
We can get along.
Sure.
Up next is item 12, Erica with the Treasury Board.
We started February in the general fund with a balance of $3,145,432.37. Our payroll liability for that month of $96,155.02. Revenues for February were $280,535.36. Expenses for February were $643,844.95. And then the payroll liability that got added from the prior month, or will go to the next $70,000, but leaving an ending balance of $2,756,570.99. But of that, general fund restricted funds are $331,768.44, leaving an available cash balance of $2,424,802.55.
I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Paul Kennedy makes the motion. I'll take Earl Baker on the second. Earlier, put your hand up quicker. Any discussion? Any questions for Erica while she's up? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Let the minutes reflect it was the treasurer's report, not the minutes. Up next is Don Tate with Public Buildings.
Okay, I have nothing to report. I did hear this afternoon from the undersheriff that the sheriff has received 2 bids for replacing, getting rid of the rock on each side of the courthouse, but he has 2 more people that are supposed to be submitting bids. So at this point in time, I have nothing to bring to the board in that regard. Hopefully something next month if the amount of the bids we have exceeds the $30,000 allowed to be spent without being bid.
So no business to be done here. So any questions for Don while we're on the subject of public buildings?
I do.
Danny?
Do you have an update on the clock issue? I have nothing. I've not tried to do anything on the clock at all. And when the undersheriff told me about these bids this afternoon, I forgot to ask before he hung up whether he has any information about the window grant application that he's working on. I have nothing to report on that. Thank you.
Any other questions? moving on, I think we'll bring in, we'll go back to item 7, but I want to open up public comment for 7 through 10. Is there anybody that would like to speak through items 7 through 10? Senator.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting us speak tonight. I have a few questions and a few statements about items 7, 8, 9, and 10, so I'll try to be quick. First of all, I'm curious as to why there's a presentation about a license agreement for the farm ground being presented by anyone other than a member or the chairman of the farming committee. Seems like that's where that should come out of. I'm curious to know who drafted the farm licensing agreement, who authorized the person or persons to do that, and how many tax dollars were spent drafting that license agreement. That I am not aware that the board officially authorized that, so I'm curious. I hope that comes out when you're discussing item 7. Agenda item number 8, Mr. Durbin is wanting to approve the license agreement and pursue farming the ground. If this is an activity that this county can engage in, I would like to make a suggestion that the county buy up all the farm ground that it possibly can, go into farming, buy semi-trucks to haul all of our grain, and reduce all of the taxes to the citizens of Shelby County. If the county can be in business to make money, go big. Number 9, Mr. Patterson is wanting to approve the Shelby County Bank to be land manager. I bank at Shelby County Bank. I obviously have nothing against the Shelby County Bank, but I didn't see anywhere where that was properly bid out. I didn't see any other land managers given an opportunity. I know I certainly wasn't given an opportunity to manage the land, so I'm not sure that that has been properly vetted. And about the license agreement itself, I do want to know where I can apply to get the job to make $135 an hour mowing the waterways. It seems like a pretty lucrative deal. Item agenda number 10. Last month I understood the state's attorney indicated that the taxes could not be sold. That an individual or group or party could not buy the taxes on county-owned property and put a lien against those taxes as they would for any other citizens. My argument then, if they can't be bought, then why are we paying them? What's the penalty if we don't pay them? Also, I'd like to point out that if the county has found itself engaged in any kind of activity that has triggered a tax liability on property, wouldn't that in and of itself say that the activity being engaged in is probably not something we should be doing? I didn't think the county paid property taxes on property it has. The final thing, the state's attorney is going to pursue the issue that the county is owed the taxes and must pay the taxes. If the county takes this position and does this, they'll be paying those taxes out of the general fund. I live in Windsor and I paid taxes that went into that general fund. If you take taxes out of the general fund and pay for farm ground that is not in the resident that I live in, the district that I live in, you're forcing me to pay taxes to Shelbyville School District, to Rose Township, and for other services in those districts that I do not reap any of the benefit from. You will be taxing me without giving me the opportunity to have any representation. And we all know that is not okay. I appreciate your time, and I hope you'll consider what I have to say.
Anybody else?
To the point that Mr. Ross just articulated, just as one last kind of wrap up there, I want to point out that taxation without representation is a violation of the 14th Amendment, and that's a federal crime. I just thought I'd lay that out there. There are a lot of question marks around the farm lease. Counties are specifically omitted from the law as being allowed to enter into this kind of agreement. I just read through the Public Funds Investment Act, which is 30 ILCS 235. It lists a whole lot of things that you can invest in. I mean, there's a lot of them. It's a long list, but farming isn't on it. Under Article 7, Section 7 of the Illinois State Constitution, If the law does not give you a power to do something, you don't have the power to do that thing. And since you don't have the power to do that thing, it's probably a good idea not to do it. On this note, you are trying something new, and I appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit involved. But you're trying to make legal something that isn't, because the law doesn't say that it is. And if you want to do that, you're trying to build a building without a foundation. You need support of law to do that, and the right way to do that is to go through the state legislature, to have the county's code amended to make this legal, and then you'll have legislation on which you can stand. But right now you don't have that. And anytime you do something new like this, it's going to get tested, it's going to get tried, it's going to go through the court system. I mean, somebody, if somebody's going to sue to find out if this is legal. That's going to happen. Anytime you do something new, that's just to be expected. And anybody who votes to do that is going to be specifically named in print in black and white with your name as a defendant in that case. No, it really wasn't, because I'm not necessarily planning on being the one to do that. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if it happens. That's kind of to be expected. That happens all the time. So I wasn't threatening or being menacing or even promising. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if it happens if you enter into the agreement. If you have any doubt based on these things and other things that you've read or researched or comments, if you have any doubt, it's probably best just to not. Concerning, I want to also ask, why is there no provision for making public records out of the transactions between the farmer and the bank? Anything that the county does with the bank will be able to be FOIA'd. But anything that the bank does, the farm manager does with the farmer, will not be able to be FOIA'd. The people won't have access to that information. There could be decisions, farming practices, there could be financial things discussed there, and the people won't have access to what their tax dollars are doing. And there's not an allowance made for that in the agreement. I think you're probably delegating your fiduciary obligations to someone else. That would be like giving a committee the power to take action, and that's not legal. Committees have to make proposals and bring them to the board, and the whole board takes action. Committees don't have that power. It would be like hiring another lawyer to do your state's attorney's job, and we've been down that road and it's not legal. You can't give up your responsibilities to someone else or to another entity or a group. You have to make the decisions because you're the ones charged with that. I want to ask if that's in the best interest of the taxpayer. So if you have any doubts about any of these legalities, these legal matters, these questions, then, and quite honestly, you're not going to get them all answered because it's a new thing. And if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, it might just be best not to pursue at this time. That's my comment.
Chairman, let me clarify something about the farm agreement real quick. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Bennett tried to set up a meeting with the farm committee and try to get some of this stuff out of the way. We're anticipating a legal opinion and another opinion coming in. And because of the chairman's declining chance to have a committee meeting, under Robert's rules of law, 2 committee members can call a meeting and have a meeting if there's 2 members or more. And Mr. Bennett put it on the agenda to have a committee meeting, and the chairman canceled it. We would like to discuss all these issues at that time, but we didn't. We had no committee meeting. We had no reason to bring up the approval of the farm agreement or the farm licensing agreement or anything else related to the farm, because we as a committee have to make up those suggestions and bring it to the board. We didn't do that. We just want to make that work effective. Anybody have any questions of that?
This is a point of order toward your You're right, two people, if Jesse decided to, or whatever Jesse did, if he had the meeting or had not the meeting. But two people can get together. Also, you have to post it. You have to make it public.
We both, we got 48 hours.
You have it posted how many days in advance?
48 hours.
48 hours?
You can read Robert's rules if you like.
I know, well, I have Robert's rules.
Just bear in mind, OMA and Robert's rules don't always coincide, so you have to follow OMA first before you go to Robert's rules. That's for the board. Earl, get public comment.
I got a question there. So what we're saying is there was no committee and they're bringing it before the board before going to the committee?
Okay, let's get back to public comment. We'll get into these discussions when we get into the agenda. John.
Yes, when he was talking, I thought of something I had thought of saying before just now. And I went through this with other public bodies. The Public Officer Prohibited Activities Act, Section 3.1, requires a public disclosure under oath signed before any contract is entered into relating to the ownership or use of property of the government. That would include leasing, licensing, because it's related to the ownership or use. Do you have that signed statement under oath from whoever's interested in the contract? You can read 50 ILCS 105 3.1. The disclosure shall be in writing and shall be subscribed by a member or an authorized trustee, corporate official, general partner, or managing agent, or his or her authorized attorney under oath. Prior to, before any contract relating to ownership and use of real property. And it's prior to, I would suggest prior to voting on the contract. That is so the public knows who they're dealing with, and they have it in writing and wrote. The other thing I have is I'm asking you to review whether evergreen contracts are legal with the local government. An evergreen contract is a contract that auto-renews without a positive or affirmative vote of the board, whatever public body is contracted with. I don't believe those can happen, but that is what is in the terms of the Farm Management Agency agreement. The term of this agreement will be for 1 year and from year to year thereafter until terminated by either the owner or agent for any reason give a written notice to the other party not later than September 1st of any year. That sounds like if you take no action, it automatically renews. I don't think you can do that, and I would ask that you review that provision whether you can auto-renew contracts with local governments. And then I see under the agent's powers, they can spend the county's money without prior approval other than this agreement to pay agent's powers under D to pay from funds of the owner in possession of the agent, insurance, insuring any and all buildings in such amounts as the agent deems appropriate. That's without board approval. They can just buy whatever insurance that they're going to use with using public funds without the board voting to pay those funds or voting to use that insurance company. There's other provisions in this agreement that are just as bad or worse. I would suggest that first, especially if this is the first time you brought these agreements to the board, you have a debate on the issues on each section of all the agreements. Find out if there's been a sworn statement under oath under section 3.1 of the Public Officers Prohibited Activities Act. Find out if we evergreen contracts. I think we'll find your answer if this research is going. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public body comment pertaining to the farm issues? Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Brad Halbrook, I'm a property owner here. I'm coming to you as a property owner tonight. I have kind of a lengthy presentation, so bear with me. These points I think, are extremely important to the discussion of items 7, 8, 9, and 10. I want to start with this fact. Well, I'm concerned. It was brought up earlier before I started on the main part of the presentation. I'm concerned about moving forward on an agenda item concerning the farm when you have a tabled item that may need to be untabled, and we need to have some clarity on that probably before we move forward. Presentation. Article 8, Section 1 of the Constitution simply says, public funds, property, or credit shall be used only for public purpose. Number 2, the land that's in question was acquired, I believe, in 1867 via provisions in the Poorhouse Act of 1819 as it was amended. The farm was bought to support the activities of the poorhouse, one way or the other. This act was repealed in 1967. Thus, the public purpose for that land went away when the act was repealed. The public purpose, this should have been declared at that time in 1967 or 1968. This land should have been declared surplus property, just as if a squad car or a dump truck or any other piece of property that the county owns, once it gets past its public purpose or useful life, is declared surplus property and thus put up for public auction in one order or the other to be sold to the highest bidder. Item 3, the county's code was not amended after 1967 to allow this farmland that was acquired under the previous act to be rented, leased, or licensed to a private entity for a private purpose. It's not in there. Item 4, concerning the Kendall County and other cases that have been brought forward to justify the licensing agreement, how is it possible to take state statute and judicial decisions from one code and apply it to another code? Why do we have multiple silos of different codes? Why do we have a township code, county code, municipal code, park district code, forest code, whatever, name your XYZ code? Why do we have that if we are able to move codes or judicial decisions from one code to another? I think that's an important question. The motions or agenda items before you tonight, I believe, have circumvented the committee process. We have had individual board members going rogue, making agreements outside the perimeters of the committee structure. Item 6, in the county's code 55 ILCS 5/1005, paragraphs 1 through 23 describes all the powers that's granted to you as members of this body. Couple things that we need to go through here. I do not see where it grants you, the members of this body, the power to delegate your power to a third party. The bank management firm is not another public body. It's a private entity. You can't do an intergovernmental agreement with them as if like you did a month or so ago with the city concerning the zoning administrator. That's a different entity. This creates an issue with OMA and with FOIA. I can FOIA this body for communications between you and the management firm. However, I would not be able to access the records between the management company and the entities that they are doing business on behalf of the farm or the county. Additionally, I can attend meetings of this body and the management company, but I couldn't attend meetings that the management company might have with entities doing business on behalf of the county. My question is, where is it written that this body can delegate their power to manage to a third party? You are elected to carry the powers out delegated to you in statute on behalf of the taxpayers of this county, not to sub these powers out to an unaccountable organization, a private business. This would be the same when it comes to a farm rent lease license agreement. state's attorney has already stated that leasing and renting is not possible. I think it's important to have this discussion. I'd like to ask the question, how many have read this section 55 ILCS 5/5-1005 1 through 23? Raise hands if you've read it or not. Here's the powers that you've been granted. I want you to tell me at the end of this conversation where you have the powers to engage with a third-party, non-governmental body and the powers to rent this ground out, lease it, license it, whatever the case might be. Item 1, to purchase and hold real estate and personal estate necessary for the uses of the county. To purchase and hold for the benefit of the county. We understand that. Number 2, to sell and convey or lease any real, personal, or property owned by the county. To make all contracts and do all other acts in relation to the property and concerns of the county necessary to exercise its corporate powers. Now, I think we've heard in earlier discussions that gives you the ability to do what's being presented tonight. But I think what's important in this discussion is you have to read this entire section and look for the powers that you're looking for, because it gets very, very specific as we move forward. Item 4, to take all necessary measures and institute proceedings to enforce all laws in the prevention of cruelty to animals. Very specific paragraph about that. Number 5, to purchase and hold real estate upon which may be erected buildings, maintained for the utilized purpose of agriculture experiments, and to purchase and hold and use personal property for the care and maintenance of such real estate in connection with such experimental purposes. Very specific. Number 6, to cause to be erected or otherwise provided suitable buildings for maintaining a county hospital. Lengthy paragraph talks about county hospitals. Very specific. To contribute such sums of money. Item 7, to contribute sums of money toward erecting, building, maintaining, and supporting any non-sectarian public hospital within the limits of the county board of the county. Again, very specific. Item 8, to purchase and hold real estate for the preservation of forests, prairies, and other natural areas to maintain and regulate the use thereof. Number 9, to purchase and hold real estate for the purpose of preserving historical spots in the county, to restore, maintain, and regulate the use thereof, and to donate any historical spot to the state. Number 10, to support funds from the county treasury to be used in any manner to be determined by the board for the suppression, eradication, and control of tuberculosis among domestic cattle in such county. Paragraph 11, to take all necessary measures to prevent forest fires and encourage the maintenance and planting of trees and the preservation of forests. Number 12, to authorize the closing on Saturday mornings of all offices of the county officers at the county seat, and it goes on to talk more detail about the county offices and the closure on Saturday morning. Very specific. Item 13, to provide for the conservation, preservation, and proper propagation of insectivorous birds through the expenditure of funds provided for such purpose. Item 14, to provide funds from the county treasurer to expand for the same care and treatment of tuberculosis residents. Item 15, in counties having less than 1 million inhabitants, to take all necessary and proper steps for the extermination of mosquitoes, flies, and other insects within the county. 16, to install an adequate system of accounts for financial records in the offices and divisions of the county, so on and so forth, talking about that as far as the financial records. Lengthy paragraph. Item 17, to purchase and hold real estate for the construction and maintenance of motor vehicle parking facilities for persons using county buildings. But the purchase and the use of real estate shall not be for revenue-producing purposes. Item 18, to acquire and hold title to real property located within the county or partly within, partly outside, on and on and on, about recreational areas and parks. That whole paragraph is quite lengthy, talking about recreational and parks. Item 19, to appropriate funds from the county treasurer to be used to provide supporting social services designed to prevent unnecessary of elderly residents or the operation of or the equipment of for senior citizen centers providing for social services to elderly residents. Item 20, to appropriate funds from the county treasury and loan such funds to county water commission. Again, another lengthy paragraph specifically talking about county water commissions. Item 21, to appropriate and expend funds from the county treasury for economic development purposes. It goes on to talk a little more detail about economic development. Number 22, to lease space to a telecommunications tower. 23, and this is the final paragraph. In counties having a population of 100,000 or less, and a public building commission is organized by the county seat and the county thereof, to cause to be erected or otherwise provided and to maintain and cause to be maintained. He talks about county public building commission. So the question is, was it written in that powers, in that statute, was it written to give you the authority to contract or to deal with a third party the responsibilities that you have? Did it talk specifically about renting, leasing, licensing farmland? If you move forward on any or all of these agreements, where do they allow in anything that I've read in the agenda or these items to be bid out? Additionally, do you have a line item in your budget for the operational expense of this farming operation estimated to be $80,000 to $90,000? My understanding is that you can amend the budget. But if you amend the budget, where is the $80,000 to $90,000 to operate the farm coming from? Furthermore, you are risking taxpayers' dollars at the risk of some level of crop failure that insurance or other ways may not make the taxpayers in this county whole. Is that your charge as members of this public body to put the county property owners' tax money at risk? The treasurer has restrictions on the types of investments that the treasurer can invest in this county. There's restrictions there on what they can invest in. My question is, why would this maneuver be any different than that? You've been provided with an AG opinion on the Logan County case that stated that the county cannot do what they're attempting to do. The opinion advised for the sale, which did happen in Logan County in 1974, to the best of my knowledge. Many members of this body and the public have studied this issue in earnest for the last couple of 3 months. This has been an issue since almost well over a year ago, 13, 14 months ago. But only in the last couple of months has members of the public and this body began to study and to drill into this issue. All the possible solutions to maintain the current or a similar process have been exhausted. There appears to be an attempt to maintain the status quo at all costs. I believe this is ill-founded and wrong-headed. Again, lots of discussion, lots of opportunities, and many in this public body may be in doubt. Let me remind you that in a Dillon's rule state that when you as a member of a public body are in doubt, the government does not prevail and the taxpayer does prevail. If you're in doubt, you err on the side of protecting the taxpayer. There's also a question that's been brought up by an earlier speaker or two about the question of double taxation and taxation without representation. This becomes a 14th Amendment violation, which becomes a real issue. I believe that the consensus is that many cannot find in black letter law, in state statute, or in the Constitution the ability for this public body to take a public asset and use it for a private purpose. In closing, if you're in doubt, you must vote against these measures and these proposals. You must protect yourself. You must protect this body from potential litigation. And most importantly, you must protect the taxpayers, the people that voted for you to put you in this position to do the business for them. You must protect the taxpayers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the body, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Brad. Anybody else in public body comment like to speak? Mark.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask you all to consider putting on the next month's agenda an item to untable the vote to sell the farmland and to put that motion back to vote, discussion and voting, please.
Bobby, I hadn't thought about it before today, but with mentioning of the investment, we do have an investment policy for Shelby County. I've not reviewed that since probably January of 19, but it might be something worth looking at because I'm not sure that this deal's in there, but there is a Shelby County investment policy that's on file.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
It pains my heart because I'm from a farming family to say I think we all should table all of this year and let the land sit until you can actually figure out what you can do with it. I think that there are other counties in this position, and maybe somebody will take this to get it legal so you can do it. I really want you to think about just letting it sit this year and figuring out how to. I want, as a farming family, I really want to keep it, but I don't know if it's legal. But if we wait, maybe it will become legal by the time we get to this next year. That's my thanks for listening.
Thank you. Hearing no other public body comment, we'll move on to item 7. Jim Shorman, would you like to present, please?
Good evening, everyone. Honored to stand in front of you this evening. I've lived in this county most of my life and appreciate the work that you all do for the county. I know that it's a difficult job at times, and this is one of them, it sounds like. The license agreement is one that Nicole and I worked on together. It's a combination of a custom contract agreement that I've used in the past for other farm management customers, and primarily the Kendall County agreement that's been presented here before. Have you all read this license agreement at length? Or do you want me to go over it line by line?
I did read it, but it'd be best to read it for those that haven't.
Okay, you'd like me to read it? Okay.
Or at least overview it.
Okay.
Let's do a page overview.
Okay. All right, so the first part of this license agreement sets out the licensee, which is the county, and, well, I'm sorry, it's the person that's actually going to farm the land, and the licensor is the county. Lists the legal description for the farm, which is 236 acres, and gives the licensor the right to go in and inspect, make improvements, do the normal things the landowner does. The length of the tenure is different than a traditional leasehold type lease. It gives the licensor the ability to terminate this agreement at any time for any reason, given 30 days notice. It basically leaves the licensor, the licensee, the licensor in control essentially all the time, which is different than a normal leasehold would be, where the person that's the tenant in that case takes control of the property. The crop proceeds in this particular agreement go 100% to the licensor, and it specifically states in this contract that they would go to total grain, bushels would go to total grain management in Shelbyville, unless otherwise affected, because that's the closest elevator to the farm property. Payment-wise, as far as how the licensee will be paid, the licensee would agree to submit bills to the licensor with an itemized statement twice a year, at least by July 30th, and then again by December 15th in order to be paid. One of the things that's been mentioned multiple times is the transparency of this agreement. And part of the farm management agreement would be that I provide quarterly reports to this body, depending on how you wanted them, either the farm committee or really anyone who was interested to receive those. Every transaction that would occur as far as expense or income would appear on the reports. So there would be widespread transparency as far as how this was being taken care of. Page 2 talks about the procurement of supplies. The licensor is responsible for purchasing all seed, fertilizer, herbicides, and farm supplies. And that's something that I regularly do in my current position, so I would be taking care of that as your farm manager. If there was something that the tenant would purchase, which would be highly unusual, an invoice would be submitted in order for it to be paid. This agreement provides the licensor with complete control as far as how the farm is operated. A crop plan is put together at the beginning of the year with the farmer, so there's an understanding as far as how things are going to be done, and the farmer would have some latitude as far as how the farm was tilled, but it would be by agreement between the farm manager and the farmer, and each operation is paid. So if the farmer goes out and uses a vertical tillage tool, there's a price for that in this licensing agreement. If he goes out and plants, there's a price for that in this licensing agreement. Harvesting is listed in here. Pretty much every operation, including, as was mentioned earlier, mowing roadsides, which, by the way, is a very hazardous and problematic operation for farmers. That's why that price per hour is so high.
Are you moving to page 3?
Yes, I am moving to page 3.
Before you move to page 3, I have a question on page 2.
Yeah.
So the listed rates that you just kind of briefed over, is this so this is a licensing agreement. Typically, in a license, this is something I have to wrap my brain around a little bit, but typically in a license, the licensee pays the licensor for the ability to use something. I get a hunting license so I can go use public lands. Okay. Were these rates, they come from Unified Farm Doc, I assume?
They do.
Okay. So if we're going to spend thousands of dollars on these, why not, Morley, to some points made in public comment, why not bid these out and see who will do it for the cheapest?
Mr. Chairman, it would be difficult in a farming situation to get the best job done if you bid these out by, I guess you could possibly ask for the lowest cost farmer and have one entity, one farm bid. I'm not saying you couldn't do that. It's just my understanding that for your 21 growing season, time is really short in order to do that.
Sure. It just seems like these numbers are set in stone, and we can only assume that, like in a chisel plow situation at 1270 an acre, we can assume that he's running a 15-foot tool and a 250 horse tractor. Does that cover his cost? You go right down through this. In my opinion, this should be backed by and a description of the equipment that would be used, because some of these may be overpaid, some of them may be well underpaid. I don't know.
Yeah, you raise a good point. I don't know that there's a perfect answer for what you're suggesting.
Simplify that just a little bit. If you go off Iowa states, it's a lot simpler. You can go on a per acre basis. It includes plant and harvest and all of it, and it's all one shot. To simplify what you're talking about. If you want to bid it that way, you don't have a problem with that. But like he's talking about, if you get 5 guys tractor in there, you know as well as I do that's not going to work.
Well,
if you want to set it up on a per acre basis for the whole shebang, that's the way to go. And the numbers are out there.
What Mr. Slifer is saying is absolutely correct, and I look at those periodically. The reason I choose to use these is if you look at Iowa State's numbers, there's a broad range there. There's not a set number. The university has looked at these, like you say, depending on the horsepower tractor, the size of the tool, there is some leeway there. The university's looked at these, somebody has studied these rates and said this is what we think is a break even for farmers. So that's why I utilize these. There's nothing wrong with what you say at all. The problem is the time is. It's March the 11th, and if we don't get substantial rainfall, people will be farming before April 1st. So Any other questions as far as so far?
I just want to set the record straight that you take these figures per acre times 236 acres, and then you come up with a net number.
Earl, it depends on which crop. So, yeah, that you can't do that. And come up with an accurate number. I can give you those numbers. I mean, the estimate.
But what I'm looking at is X amount of dollars is that viability, and if that thing, something happened, bad drought, I mean, the county's lost money to the taxpayers.
Let me address that as we finish up with this licensing agreement. Some of the other comments I made will go to that.
Hang on, Mr. Chairman.
I just have one comment for Earl. I'm sure we're only going to pay farming for the tillable acres, and the whole 236 is not tillable. There's only about 204 that's tillable. The rest of it they'll mow and that kind of stuff, but it's not farm grounds. There won't be a custom rate on the rest.
There's about 204 acres that are tillable. 204, yeah. And the budget that I put together, directs us to that. Talk about that.
Gary, is the untillable this timber or what?
There's quite a bit of timber. Did you look at the maps that came?
I looked at maps, but
you can see, especially on the north side, the east side, the south side, there's quite a bit of timber, like 15 acres of timber. There's waterways and there's terraces, which, so all that area is non-tillable.
What do you do?
What's that?
Why keep it if it's not going to do anything?
It's conjectural.
It's all built into the farm, yeah.
You gotta have the non-tillable to keep the tillable.
If you didn't have all these items in there, it all works downhill.
One of the things that I mentioned one of the things I mentioned to some of the board members that I've talked to thus far is the timber part of it. There might be some additional income there because it's likely that those trees have not been looked at for years. And it's important when you're looking at a farm like this as a whole, at every aspect. And that's one thing that might generate some additional income. Timber is valuable. It just needs to be reviewed and possibly harvested. Page 3 essentially says the licensee is going to comply with all federal, state, and local laws, ordinances as far as what he brings to the farm. The licensee's duties are to conduct farming operations, responsible for preventing noxious weeds, basically taking care of the farmstead while they're farming. Insurance side of it, the licensee operates on the property subject to the habit of farming and is supposed to insure himself appropriately, carry a $1 million liability policy so that the county would bear no risk from whatever operations they're doing. The real estate tax section discusses how the licensor is making no claims to the tax status of the subject property. There is, from what Nicole has told me, considerable law that would make this appear that it would be tax exempt in the future. We just don't know that to be a fact right now. So it's possible that the taxation issue would go away. We just can't answer that question today. Is that an accurate statement, Nicole?
Yes, the case law is clear that the licenses are non-taxable, but the Department of Revenue will not preview agreements, so they wouldn't give us a final answer until the license was sent to them.
This agreement still has the licensor as far as any taxes that would be incurred in this year, paying those taxes. We wouldn't expect any farmer to sign this agreement with that over their heads.
Jim, regarding the taxes, if it's found out late in the year that it is taxable, and the farmer's out in October, November, and the tax comes due next summer, who's going to pay it?
The county will.
The county will pay their taxes again?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Even if it's going to be assessed to the farmer, but it wouldn't be assessed to the farmer?
No, it would not.
licensee is under 30,000, is that correct, Jim?
Yes, that's correct.
The main cost would be purchasing the crops and things like that for them to use, the payment to the licensees.
But we will spend maybe 90,000.
In total for everything, for the equipment, for the crops and things using for it, but not for the licensing.
And Brad, I wanted to ask you a question. Isn't there a bill in Springfield where some politicians tried to get a law passed making it legal to rent property out for farming, and it's just laying there and never did get to the floor? Am I right on that?
Yeah, so the language has been drafted this spring, the bill wasn't filed, just because you just can't get around the public purpose issue, okay? Again, back to my earlier points, the farm was acquired as a result of the Courthouse Act of 1819, provided for that.
But if they thought it was legal in Springfield, we wouldn't need this bill passed.
Right, but right now, like I explained in my comments, there's nothing in the Constitution or black letter law that will allow for any of this to happen.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, so the bottom part of page 3 just basically identifies the county from any claims that the licensee might make. That's the end of page 3 and the start of page 4. The licensee cannot assign or transfer this license to some other entity. And so when a contract's signed, that's who we do business with. They are considered an independent contractor. The licensee is. There's no cash rental agreement. There's no crop share agreements. There's no anything. You're paying them by the operation to do this work. There's a conflict of interest clause in this agreement that says that no Shelby County officer or elected official has any interest as far as the licensee, being the licensee is concerned. And that we're not going to discriminate as far as who we hire to do this. Page 5, the top part of page 5, basically outlines how this contract will be settled if there's a disagreement as far as Illinois law is concerned, discusses legal remedies, and that it's final, that this written agreement is the final say in what happens on this particular piece of farm ground. So that's how the license agreement is put together. Any questions, other questions?
One more quick, Jim. How are you going to pick out who the tenant's going to be? How do you put a order or?
No, sir. I would assume that I won't pick out the tenant, that either the farm committee or the county board will give me direction as far as how that goes. I'm, the board of servant essentially here. I think the farmer that you have has done a fantastic job for a long time, so I would definitely recommend James Hampton as far as the tenant. This farm, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, it lays about 2 miles north of the Shelby County Airport. It's on the moraine, and it is very up and down. Parts of it are relatively flat. It also has multiple terraces on it because of the slope involved. And Mr. Hampton has farmed this with minimal tillage over the last several years in order to maintain the integrity of the soils. And whoever you farm it would need to have those kinds of capabilities for you to run this farm in short order. So you can't, say good things about the way Jim and Kevin have handled themselves in the past as far as how this has been farmed. Yes, sir.
I've got a question. What would you say the value of this ground is if we just put it up for sale?
I assume you've all read my letter that I sent, and that's a very short tail evaluation. I hesitate to say, Earl, the number that I gave you in that letter was $6,500 an acre.
I've not seen it, so.
Okay. And I don't know, it may be low. There's certainly a range for farmland. The productivity index and the corn yield, the university puts on this piece of property is relatively high. I think it was 175, something like that. And those typically tend to be lower than what we're actually producing in today's world. Those yields were established a few years ago. So it's not a bad farm. I hadn't reached out to Jim Hampton until pretty late in the game to ask him what the yields were on this piece of property. But they're higher than that, but they're not a lot higher than that as far as on average. And I think part of that is just you've got some really good ground on this piece, and you've got some good ground that's got a lot of slope that suffers, in hot weather, those kinds of rougher conditions. So $6,500, $7,000 an acre. If you put it up for auction, who knows? We're in a new world here. I look at land sales regularly, and the funny thing about that is there hasn't been any really to speak of. If you look around, there's very few properties that have sold in the last year and a half, and with commodity prices the way they are, it's hard to say where we'd be if it was sold today.
So I just figured that's $1,709,500. Round figure for it. Somebody figured it out. Okay.
As far as, any other questions as far as the license agreement? I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yes, we need to keep this conversation to the license agreement as presented. Jesse will be up next for the approval of the license agreement, so we can go into that discussion in a minute. Any more questions for Mr. Swarman?
I do have a little more to say, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, is it premature to talk about this farm management agreement? Is that something you don't want to discuss this evening?
Gary Patterson's got that under his list to do, if you want.
Okay. Gary,
it's on the agenda. How would you guys like to fix that up?
Yeah, I was going to say that's up, and then basically you made an estimate of expenses and income, I think, that everybody on the board should have received. I guess that's more pertinent to probably the license agreement.
do you want me to discuss that, or do you want to discuss it?
No, I would rather you, because you came up with the numbers, and I think you can answer those questions. And let somebody meet us all kind of in the same thing.
Can we take these one at a time, that way we're all fresh with them?
Okay.
And see, this isn't all a separate item, this estimate for the income. That would, to me, be part of the license.
Let's address it after we vote on the agreement.
Let's see if we can vote on let's bring up Jesse's line item, and we'll debate the approval of the farm license. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the county farm license agreement as presented.
I'm looking for a second.
I would like to second that.
Question?
Oh.
I gotta bring it up again. Can this farm committee chairman bring this to the board without a committee meeting, without approval from the committees?
Well, on the agenda, he is listed as a county board member, not the chairman of the board, so he's fully within his rights.
Chairman of the committee?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
No, he's fully within his rights as a county board member to bring any business to the table he wants to. If you recall, about a year ago, we made a big point of that. Any board member has the obligation and the right to bring any business they see fit to the board. There's nothing I can say about it. Huh?
Why have a committee who studies it and researches it?
This is part of the discussion now. So the floor is open for discussion. I do have one question that is gleaming in line 1 of this farm license agreement. And is before we sign our agreement or anything of the nature, I think it should be written correctly. The Shelby County Farm is not the lessor. Shelby County owns this land. So before we just decide that this is the thing to do, I think we ought to have the verbiage correct. The next part of that question I had is, how is TGM picked? And you said it's just close to town, right? How is TGM, did they bid grain for fall? Do they have a set system? Do we want to go to anywhere, have it trucked out? I mean, this seems like a process that it's just too finite in the grand scheme of things. How was TGM picked to be implied in this contract? Patterson?
They're listed here, but then it says unless otherwise directed. So if somebody, if he decides somebody else has a better bid, and he wants to take it somewhere else, he can. It's not specified it has to go there. It says that's where to take it unless otherwise directed.
Right.
It's not that far away.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask why they didn't have a farm committee meeting where these guys could talk things out and bring it to the...
Nicole, would you like to address that a little bit?
There was a farm committee meeting last month. They voted to approve the license. Then they had another meeting where they voted not to approve the license. They wanted to sell it. And so I stopped looking on the licensing agreement and I made the presentation at the last county board meeting and I explained all that. So I said, if you want, if the board is interested in a licensing agreement, I will continue working on it. And then a meeting was scheduled with the finance committee to consider this licensing agreement, and then that was canceled. And a farming committee was scheduled, and then that was canceled.
Why was it canceled? Why'd you guys cancel?
We didn't cancel it, the chairman did.
Oh, you checked.
You guys could have met, as you said, 2 people could have met, but you did not meet, so.
I got an email that Mark wanted to discuss.
I can't understand what you're saying.
I got an email that Mark wanted to discuss legal things with Nicole, and Nicole emailed back that she wasn't going to be available, so I canceled it.
Put it on your table until you get what you committed.
We didn't have much more time. They had to be, if I remember that day, for our timeline. But it was stuff that we had already discussed.
Yeah, it was discussed at committee. It passed committee and committee reconvened and it failed. That's where the committee issue stands on this.
Aren't we supposed to be discussing
Yeah.
the motion?
The farm license agreement, yes, we are, this is part of the license agreement. It's the backgrounding information. Patterson, you had a hand up.
I was just going to say, and then the finance committee met once and didn't take any direction, and then we set up a second meeting to take a vote on this, and the chairman canceled that meeting.
Why did the finance committee meet on this?
Because the other committee had 2 meetings, and one meeting they voted to do something, the next meeting they voted to do something different, so obviously they weren't going to be able to make a decision.
We made a
So we
decision.
said, okay, let's send it to the finance committee, that's the next most logical choice, and we met once, and then we were allowed to go get details that we were going to bring back for that committee to consider,
Okay.
but that meeting was canceled.
We'll start from front and work back. John.
Back to somebody in the public body comments earlier, can this be debated at all without removing the tabling on the selling of the farm ground?
No, it can't.
I don't know that answer specifically. That would be a Robert's Rules question, and I don't have a definitive answer. Derek, did you figure anything out?
Can I address that, Mr. Chairman? Can I address that?
You have something in writing?
As long as the question remains on the table, any member can move to take it from the table at a regular meeting. I can make a motion.
But the question is can further action be taken
I don't think so.
on something
It
from...
has to be untabled first to discuss anything. I could untable it right now and ask for a vote to sell the farm, and we can go on, move on down the road.
I believe you can make a motion to bring it out of the table, but I don't think you can make a motion to set the vote on the sale. That's all.
After, I meant after.
But it takes 2/3.
Yeah, 2-part.
Right, there's 2 questions.
Gary.
Chairman of the Finance Committee, I was asked by Gary to call a meeting, which I did. And then I talked to various ones on the committee, and they felt like if we were talking about selling the property, then that would come under finance, but to make a decision on the farming operation, that part should come from the farm committee. One of my committee members said I can't be there, so we're going to be down to a 2-and-2 standoff, talk to Mark, and Mark says, we're going to call a meeting and discuss it. And I notified Jessica and said, take my meeting off, farm committee wants to talk about it. So that's the reason I can't
to get back together for a second meeting because we had 5 minutes to look at some documents and to examine them further. And 2 out of the 3 decided to go a different route. So as far as the farm committee, the decision that we made and brought forward at the last board meeting is what we decided by quorum majority to do. Now, as far as the finance committee getting together and to take it on to themselves to change what the farm committee decided, I believe was outside of your job. We had a decision, and from what you just said there, that you decided to bring it up in your finance committee was to make sure that you went around the farm committee.
Thank you, Mark. I'd just like to point out a few questions and concerns of my own. And this has to do with the lease. We've addressed the issues of the dysfunction of the committees already. I think everybody knows that the committee function needs a lot of help. But my question about the license is, does it prevent government from expansion? When you look at Nicole's legal opinion, it references cases and situations around the state, as well as it references statute. If you go against what everybody's talked about as far as keeping the questionable action at bay and not acting on it, I really think that it's a rocky road to go down. If a license is legal, if license prevails, then I would be in full agreement that who would be able to stop a county government or a local municipality from taking these examples and purchasing more and more businesses and taking over. You're completely trusting in your people that are elected not to do things like that. But the very numbers put forth in the estimates, the income, expenses that he was going to talk about, I just want to touch on this briefly, are the very reasons why government is a tax-based entity, not a for-profit entity. And this situation puts us in a for-profit entity. Now, what's the tax questions on those? Is there any tax code written for counties to pay taxes on profits? I haven't found that one yet. I haven't looked either, but it just seems really odd that we're going to accept an idea that we can go into private business and be in direct competition with the, I've got Derek over here again. But going into a license agreement, like stated, would also put us in direct competition with every other landowner that's out there, every farmer specifically. And if you're a farmer yourself, you should be livid that the county is going into business, the exact same business that you're doing. I mean, really?
I don't think, Bobby, that we're wanting to go buy more ground or anything like this. We've got this property out here. And like Jim explained, what you would get if it was sold, the problems you can get with the guarantees. Who's going to get into that? The guarantees this year, you can guarantee your price almost $12, you know. Or I mean, what, $11.86 isn't it? The guarantee for soybeans right now, their crop insurance.
Okay.
The guarantees that you're going to get, and almost what, $4.30? I think you showed for corn. Your guarantees are going to more than pay the tenant is paying $200 an acre cash rent.
So let's
plus all these expenses.
Right.
He's making money. Well, it just don't make no sense. What?
Are you saying we're going to?
So what you're exactly alluding to is what I'm getting at is.
But we're not going against any other farmer. It's something we already own.
It's something we already own. And let me bring up the coal mine case. The coal mine is an existing asset within the property that they own. Very much so to the reference that he made to the trees. We could hire a contractor to come in, log it out, make some extra money. That's an asset that's sitting there. If we're going to spend money something earlier, and I have to go find it now because I pushed it off the site. It's in my notes, it's right here. It is the ILCS 53-1106. All county monies shall be invested in one or more of the following. And I'm going to reference investments as in a crop, because we are going to put forth money into an investment that is going to return us. Correct, okay.
Would that be a profit?
The monies we put into the crop?
The money that we invest this money. If
So
we make
if-
money on the money, is that a profit?
But listen, here is the statute that explains how you make money on your money. And because all county money shall be invested in one or more of the following. 1, interest-bearing savings account, interest-bearing certificates, or deposits of interest-bearing time deposits constituting direct obligations of any bank as shall have been selected and designated under the terms and conditions and shall have complied with the requirements thereof. Number 2, shares or other forms of securities legally issuable by savings and loan associations incorporated under law of this state or any other state or under the laws of the United States, such as shares or securities insured by the Federal Savings and Loan Corporation. Number 3, bonds, notes, certifications, and indebtedness, treasury bills, or other securities now and hereafter issued, which are guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the United States of America as a principal and interest. Number 4, short-term discount obligations of the Federal National Mortgage Association, short-term obligations of the FNMA. Number 5, dividend-bearing share accounts, share certificate accounts, or class share accounts of credit union chartered with the laws of the states or laws of the United States, provided that the accounts that credit unions are insured by applicable law and the credit union's principal office is located in that state of Illinois. The express judgment of the county treasurer as to the time of when or any of county monies will be required for expenditure or redeemable and final and conclusive. Privately owned funds held in the custody of the county treasurer must be released to the appropriate party at the earliest reasonable time, but in no case exceeds 31 days, after a private party becomes entitled to the receipt of them. Okay, so I just went through all that painful statute to say there is nothing saying we can put our monies into a perishable crop. So I rest my case for now. I'm fully not in favor of this. I would highly suggest if you're in question, you vote no. And I have Derek over here.
So I know I'm kind of a new guy here, but I've spent a long time watching, listening, and reading, studying up on laws for probably get close to a year and a half now. I know the farm ground issue, there's a lot of, there's some emotional attachment because I know that's what some of you do for a living, and on the private side of that, that makes sense. That's what you're trying to do, is acquire land, buy it, hold it, make money off of it. That makes perfect sense. And I know everybody kind of has their different opinions on it already. I probably have one. I kind of find my own opinion irrelevant. I'm just looking at laws, so I put on this just 11 facts on farmland licensing. So I'll read through those. So the first one is County Code 55 ILCS does not explicitly state that a county can license for private farming. Okay. Number 2 would be Dillon's rule. If the law doesn't say that you can do it, you don't have the authority to do it. Number 3, if you're going to argue probably that the money that's received from that farm ground is going to be used for public use by contributing to the county. I think this was referenced earlier too, that the county could then purchase or use eminent domain to acquire all of the farm ground in a county in order to benefit the county. Number 4, state constitution. This was referenced earlier. Article 8, Section 1. Public funds, it reads, public funds, property, or credit shall be used only for public purposes, not some public purpose or a little bit of public purpose, only for public purpose. Point number 5, 55 ILCS does reference contracts, but it does not say for what purpose, though. I think you need to refer back to the state constitution for that. Fact number 6 here would be park districts operate under 70 ILCS. They can license land. It still must be for public use. Point number 7, we have no Attorney General opinions on licensing farm ground by a county. We have 0 of those right now. Fact number 8 here, the comparables that have been used for licensing farm ground for growing corner beans, for example, I'll list those off. Is Kendall County is a forest preserve district. Okay, they were using that to grow hay for public horse arena, and that was bid out. Okay. The second one was Champaign Park District. There's a park district again. Was used to construct and operate a water slide. Edwards County is the only county one that's been used for comparable, and that was coal mining, which Chairman addressed there. Millennium Park was a park district for a food concession stand. And Jackson Park is a Chicago park district for a yacht club. It's close. I don't think that's what we've got there. And then the last one was the City of Chicago for parking facilities. None of those reference farm ground for licensing. I think point number 9 that I have on here, there are officially 0 county boards in the state of Illinois that are licensing out farm ground for corn and beans right now. Shelby County would be the first one, as far as I'm aware, that would license out farm ground in the state of Illinois. So that leaves 2 possible outcomes. One is that we are the first county to discover a loophole in a law that's not once been used before in history. Or 2 is that we're about to vote on something that's not allowable under state law. Thank you.
In reference to your municipalities, county buying additional ground, we've had this ground for 150 plus years. Besides the airport, has the county ever bought any more ground?
No.
Okay.
Well, I can't definitively answer that question.
But we can make a profit on
But
that.
if you create a beast out of it, it will reward you to the point where you may be competitive in another aspect. Listen, my whole view on this is that when you reference, just like Derek alluded to, when you reference parallels that have insinuations that have expressed parallels, we can insinuate a lot of things. We can insinuate that the board will be respectful and never purchase land to go into the business of farming. We can insinuate that, well, just for, quote me if I'm wrong, or don't kill me if I'm wrong, but I do believe there's a business in Windsor that's for sale. What would hold back Windsor using the county as an example and buying the lumber yard that's for sale and running a business out of it? It creates a standard that is a very slippery slope, and it would come with an immense amount of respect. And to points made earlier, when you're on slippery slopes, it's best to have a well-built foundation, and the statute that we've found does not put together a well-built foundation. Mr. Williams.
Bob, you made your opinion very apparent, what you want done with this motion, but I think we need to bring it to a vote. I'm in favor, I'm going to say it right now, I'm in favor of approval for the county farm license agreement. And I ask this board to vote yes on this. It's all yours.
I would just ask, why do you support it? I mean, we've expressed tons and tons of opposition, and I'm looking for support.
No, there's...
Why would you support it?
What's that? I don't have the same opinions, okay? I don't have the this has been here since 1867, or is that correct?
1867, the land was
And then in
purchased.
1967, we were supposed to turn it over like a used truck. That's what I was told. Okay, well, we didn't, okay? And now we're into 2020, okay? It's made a profit, I believe. I can't be 100%, but I would say the majority of the years, we have made money off of it. It has saved taxpayers money. It saves taxpayers money.
You know what I call that?
You call it.
I call it drug money.
Justification.
Because that is not
You're out of order, you can't say things like that.
That's what I,
You're out of order.
anyway.
What I want, Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
if they're going to talk about, if Mr. Wayne is going to talk about his opinion on the farm, is it based on facts, man?
It's all we need
Do
facts.
you have all this data that Mark and I and the farm committee has put together and read over the past 3 months? All the opinions that the attorney gave us on the past opinions? If you've got these facts and you've read them, you can't make that kind of decision. If you've got the facts, the different facts that we have, give them to us. Let's see it. We want to see what kind of facts you have, not personal opinions. That's what it amounts to. Facts.
I can answer that question by either supporting his motion or his idea when you say why. We begged for a state's attorney for 2 or 3 years. Now, I don't know where you got your law degree, or you got yours, or you got yours. But she's got a law degree, and she says it's legal. She doesn't see a problem with it. So why wouldn't we go with what we begged for? No offense, I don't see you guys legal. I just see you guys giving me your opinion.
No, okay, so I gave an opinion, and I also read a very lengthy statute of how you invest your money.
She signed her name to her opinion. She's got a lot more to lose than you do.
This is true. This is true.
If we can go into the land business, we need to buy farm ground and make a profit. When we say we're making a good profit on it, better than investment into banking things we just, would we make better money on farm ground than the investments that you're doing? We could put every one of them invest $5 million for the farm ground. And make money. And that's what you're saying, oh, you can't do that. Why couldn't we do that? If I can make more money on investing in farm ground, I can't in some of the stocks for investment.
Yes, I would like for Nicole to address this. I know she called a lot of counties. How many counties did you say still have farms?
17. I've got all of that.
46 counties were contacted, 15 own farmland, 13 lease the farmland, 10 of the 13, the county pays the taxes. Kendall County licenses, and it's not just their park district, their highway department also licenses. They have 2 licensing agreements, and Kendall County and the Department of Revenue approved both of them as tax exempt.
They for 2 licensing agreements that exist today.
In Kendall County, I gave both of those to the county board. They had one with the park district and one with the highway department.
I have your switch back here.
I think we've had a lot of good discussion, things that kind of went off topic, started the circle. Are we going to take a vote or not?
Can't.
We have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second on the floor. The untabled business, there's nothing. Bring up where it says you cannot proceed with new business pertaining to a subject. Does it say that?
I like to pull
I'm
that
not, excuse me a minute. I'm not the lawyer. I'm not going to confess that I'm a lawyer here.
I gave my opinion that this is a separate issue, that there's nothing on the agenda that says anything about selling the farm. What's on the issue tonight is whether you're going to vote to license it.
Still have a problem with it.
Ain't legal, ain't gonna do it. Call the vote.
Call the vote. No other debate, no other questions, no other answers?
Mark's got a question.
Mark, sorry, Mark.
Sure. Just a point of what Nicole just said. I don't remember her numbers exactly, but she did mention that there was several counties that had leases. And she's herself stated to us, and I think we saw a lot of it. We're talking about doing a license, but there are a lot of counties that have leases and have not addressed any of them. And that's why we're having to address this and try to do something finally. This is legal. I've tried to find something else that by law would work. Nicole's presenting something that she wants to try. She's trying to put it through. I understand that. But there's no for sure yet until it actually is brought up for judgment.
But for the record, her and I had a candid conversation, so this is no surprise to her that I'm adamantly fine. And so, as far as I'm concerned, we're all still civil, we just adamantly disagree.
And I guess to clarify my position, it's my opinion that the case law and the Attorney General opinions are more supportive of a licensing agreement. I asked for a second opinion from a firm that specializes in this type of thing. They think a lease agreement is acceptable. I'm more comfortable with the licensing agreement based on what the Attorney General opinions say and what the cases say. I'm playing it conservative as it pertains to whether you look at a licensing or lease agreement.
One point before we vote. If we're going to approve this as presented, I think the verbiage needs to be correct. Shelby County owns this, not Shelby County Farm. Shelby County Farm is not the owner of this land, so this needs to be correct before we do anything proceeding. So,
Run that by again.
the Shelby County Farm is not the owner. Shelby County is the owner, the lessor. So the verbiage needs to be correct before we should even entertain accepting this.
The farm, Shelby County Farm.
The county of Shelby is the legal binding name of the county, of the entity that owns the farm.
Okay, I'll amend it then.
The motion to,
County of Shelby County would like to accept this license agreement as presented.
we have to call the vote. Is there any other discussion?
Did we hear the motion?
The motion is well, I got the motion, I'm sorry. So the motion is to approve of the county farm licensing agreement, which is what we've been talking about.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the record known that the committee cannot make this recommendation.
Right. That's what the agenda says.
Committee
Pat?
didn't make it.
Pat?
An individual did.
Bobby, we agree almost always. There's one point we're going to disagree on here. You said, as far as I can tell, we've been civil. We left civil whenever you made the, you know what I call it, threat money. I think there's an apology owed to our constituents.
I'll apologize. When I referenced that, I referenced an ill money. Something that isn't clean. I apologize to the public in general for that, in general. But I do feel that the monies that we received are ill-fated, and they were not correct from 1967 on.
I agree wholeheartedly. I want to make sure that we're right.
Right.
Refresh me if I'm wrong, but even if we do license or lease, we're still going to have to pay taxes, which is illegal. Am I correct?
The licensing pursuant to case law is exempt, but we have to apply for that to the Department of
So it is
Revenue.
exempt.
But they will not preview a license, I call them asked, until it's approved.
Didn't we have a call vote?
Yeah, and if we could take a 2/3 vote to... So I haven't called a vote. No other discussion.
Why 2/3?
In the very beginning, according to Robert's rules, stated that it requires 2/3 vote to stop debate.
Okay.
And since there was still debate going on, understanding there's a call to vote, I'm just clearing the
So this
floor.
is to, in debate.
So, motion to call a question. Now we'll take a vote to call a question, because we still had debate going on. So we're going to vote on to call the question. Or do we want to go to vote? No. Excuse me. All in favor of calling the vote, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
No.
2 noes. Earl and Poe. Any other noes? Motion passes to call the vote. All in favor of approving the county farm licensing agreement?
Roll call.
And we'll do a roll call.
Okay, Earl Baker,
No.
Kenny Barr,
Yes.
Mark Bennett,
No.
Paul Kennedy,
No.
Brian Kaufman,
Yes.
Dennis Sturdivich,
Yes.
Jesse Durbin,
Yes.
Gary Gergany,
No.
Rod Hyde,
No.
Larry Lenz,
Yes.
Patrick Lyons,
No.
Terry Metzger,
Yes.
Bobby Warman,
No.
Gary Patterson,
Yes.
Gary Piercy,
No.
John Poe,
No.
Robert Simpson,
Yes.
Jeff Slifer,
Yes.
David Switz,
Yes.
Don Tate,
No.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes 11 to 10.
It's not 2/3. 2/3 votes?
No, it's not 2/3 vote.
Oh, because Barb's absent.
I'll take a picture.
So it's 11 ayes, 10 nays. Barb.
Motion passes to approve the county farm licensing agreement. Now, up next would be Gary Patterson with the approval of the farm management agreement.
Get up here with the light here. Okay, I guess that everyone received this farm management agreement. And basically, whatever we met and talked about our alternatives for ways that we can handle the farm, the agreement we got Monday, basically said, they said we could lease it, but we felt like if the license makes it exempt, that's the most legal way to do it. The license makes the county the most money. If you saw the estimate of income, basically the farm's been making $30,000 to $32,000 a year, the way it is. And the estimated income was $72,400. So basically, like you said, it could be a better year than that, it could be a little less, but any way you look at it, the farm is going to make more money than it has in the past. We're going to take crop insurance, which locks us into where we can't possibly lose money. I mean, we will make, tell me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I think we'll make as much money as we ever made in the past if we had crop failure. From what I'm reading here, I mean, it looks like we're going to have approximately $72,000 worth of expenses. And our insurance, it looks like, would pay us approximately $120,000 if we had a complete crop failure or if we didn't meet the crop limits. So we would actually, I mean, as long as we have the insurance, it sets us in a floor that we cannot put the county into a liable position. We cannot lose the county money. Now, the big key here is we have to have crop insurance, and if you don't buy that by Monday, you don't get crop insurance. So that thing goes away on Monday. But as long as we have the crop insurance, we have a floor have more income than we've had in the past. That money all goes back to the county, and it all goes back to the taxpayers. And we're in a no-risk situation. We're not taking care of anything except our own farm, which is already paid for. So we're making a better return if we put that money on inners. Might make $15,000, might make $10,000. If we put it into the farm, we've been making the low 30s. I don't see any way we're not going to make 50 on the farm. That money is going to go back to taxpayers, it's going to the general fund just like it always has. It isn't, anybody's not going to keep it. And the reason that we're looking at going with an outsider is somebody's got to make decisions right away on somebody to farm this ground, on somebody to work with that person to farm that ground, somebody to take care of our asset, which has definitely been appreciating. And we're looking at a better income this way, plus we're looking at good appreciation. When farming's good, the ground appreciates.
Where do you get the money at this year, Gary?
You know what? If the
This is for 2022?
if the board rules that we cannot get the money, that we cannot take the money out of the budget, we do have the option that we can finance it with our suppliers.
Can we finance it?
I don't know if we can. You tell me.
You're the finance guy.
Can we do that? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. This is the attorney. This is
I'm
a
talking about
finance
finance,
question.
not legal. I'm talking about finance.
Yes, we can finance it, yes.
Can we?
Now, whether it's legal or not, that's her answer, not mine. I'm not an attorney.
I thought you did this preliminary before you brought this to the board.
I think we did.
You did?
Yes.
I'd like to see that 80,000 come from somewhere.
We're not talking $80,000. Did you look at the printout?
If it's over $8,000, you ain't got it.
No, we don't have it right now.
Okay.
So I guess basically, if you don't want an agreement for somebody to management, if you don't want the farm to make money, if you don't want to put anything into the budget for it,
I'd
then
love for the county to do this. But it's not going to fall out of the sky for us to do it. The money. We've already talked about that, and the treasurer's already told you that. How are you going to do it?
does anybody have an answer to that?
I'd like to hear it.
We spend money all the time, don't we?
Who are we
We spend millions of dollars.
going to ask to find the money for us?
I assume the budget committee. I think we talked about a budget committee today.
Is anybody here on the budget committee can find $80,000? I'm not trying to embarrass you, I just want the facts.
There ain't no embarrassment to it.
Anything we talk about is fact-based, not personal.
That's right, I want
Where's
to
the
talk
money?
about
Show us the money.
We can work with the suppliers, I've already talked to a few myself. They won't carry us until after harvest. If it's money they're worried about, it's
Using
their
our own
money.
money.
Man, what way to do this?
What's wrong with it? Doesn't people do it every day?
Counties don't, cities don't,
I don't.
governments don't. You might. You gotta look at it as a government eyes, Gary.
I
Not
am.
your
We're
personal
taking no risk with their money.
You can't have, you don't have the money. Am I right or
We
wrong?
don't have, I think they got $1.7 million sitting out there.
Can you use it, is it line item? Ask this lady right
What are you
here.
gonna do if you sell it? Are you gonna use it then?
Ask this lady right here if you've got the money to do it.
I know I don't. Right now, there's $8,000 in that budget for the farm.
So how are you gonna do it? We're signing a contract supposedly to have the money to get this going.
No, I'm just saying if we don't have Monday, we have no security. That's all I'm saying. If we don't do it by
Where's the
Monday,
money?
there's
Show me
no
the money.
security. Like you just said, our suppliers,
We're, beyond the management part of it, has it been 100% affirmatively declared we, as a government entity, are eligible for federally subsidized crop insurance?
crop insurance, yes.
That is, okay,
Government programs, no. We don't get any subsidies from the government, no.
okay.
Insurance is a yes.
Insurance, yeah.
The crop insurance is a yes. Inputs is a yes.
What information is required for a farm manager to get insurance by Monday? What do they need? Information-wise,
What do they need?
what do you need to have insurance by Monday?
You'll need last year's yields and what level of coverage you want.
I'll also need some kind of agreement, gives me the authority to sign up.
He needs disagreement, says he can sign
Well,
up.
right, but I didn't know if we needed any sort of IDs or anything like that, or, I don't know, I'm asking, that's why I was asking a question.
The yields are, I was just gonna say, the yields are available because the market's a profit street,
Yeah.
so that's not an issue.
I don't know if them yields will apply or not. The way it was rented before, and now it's gonna be rented different, you don't get them numbers. You start out with the county average.
I think with the airport already being involved in this type of, we may be able to have something there.
Very well, maybe right.
The proposal with all these numbers, the insurance coverage, where is that supposed to be $7.18 per acre for corn, or is that, your decimal point get left out somewhere?
I'm sorry, where are you looking at?
Okay, I'm looking at the sheet of, the list of all the expenses, income expenses that were emailed out.
Right.
And at the very top, insurance coverage for corn crop credit, 80% coverage is $718 per acre.
Yeah,
I read it.
that's correct. That's the guarantee.
That's the guarantee.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought that was cost. I was talking about.
So the cost was about $23 an acre.
There's a insurance.
You found it, okay.
All right, please, we have it.
Yeah, okay, so let's start the sheet. So crop insurance is 3205, you get something.
That's for corn.
No, that's for all of it.
Oh,
That's for all the crop insurance. And then on the first page, that's how many dollars that our water is, that's how much it covers. Right.
That's fine.
Nope, that's fine, that's why we're here, to answer questions.
Mr. Chairman.
That's right.
So I would like the state's attorney to weigh on this issue of whether the county can finance this operation.
I believe he's out of order.
All right, hold on.
I asked a question earlier, but go right ahead.
Jim could explain the agreement, I think would be helpful.
Does anybody know the answer to this question? Have you read your agreement? Have you read your agreement? Nicole, please weigh in on this decision whether the county can finance this operation, yes or no.
Jim's got an option, I believe, for 0% interest loan.
Can the county finance this operation?
Oh, I believe so.
Okay, can you show us where that's written? Show us where that's written. In state statute, that the county can finance a farming operation.
The county has the ability to purchase things, so why couldn't it finance something?
Okay, so the question is, the operational expense, like I alluded to earlier, was $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. I think it's $72,000 or $3,000. Where is that money coming from? Where is that money coming from?
You can vote to take it from the general fund, that's what's being discussed.
Okay, do we have that in the general fund to do that? You don't have a line item, you have a line item in your budget for $8,000 plus or minus a farm, what's that?
$6,800.
$6,800, you have a line item in there, so you're gonna have to amend your budget, you're gonna come up with another about $70,000. Where is that coming from?
I think that answer came from over here when Jeff alluded to.
let Jim finish giving his presentation here, and that will answer your question, Brad.
So if you guys would have read the agreements, it's in the agreement, you have allowed your farm manager to mortgage, do whatever he or she wants to do with this, with the financing this. You have given him that opportunity to do that. Is that what you want? You've given a third party, unelected, not taking an oath of office, to do whatever they want to do with $70,000 worth of your money. Is that what you want?
I don't think they know what they want when Jim hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
There's not a $70,000 number. That's unlevel. He can borrow money as much as he wants without asking the board.
Jim, let's have Jim present on this.
One final thought here, guys, is your $72,000 or $3,000 operation, you're splitting the bid to get underneath the bid thresholds here. This is a farming operation. This is one piece of ground. You're splitting the bid to skirt that law. I think you need to double check. We need to have an opinion way here before us about how we do this. This is you're doing this stuff, no bid. You're skirting the law by saying, well, we're going to bust this up in multiple pieces so that we can undergo or get underneath the threshold. I think that's an issue that we need to have an opinion on tonight.
Jim, would you like to continue?
Sure. I don't know the legality of this, obviously, but I did come prepared to talk about how this might be funded. I reached out to Nutrien, which is the local fertilizer chemical herbicide company here in Shelbyville. They have a 6 months no payment, no interest program that starts basically whenever you purchase the particular product, and in this case that could be done over time so that if we have very little that would come due before that 6 month time period would expire. If you went past 6 months, it would be prime plus 6%, with the 6% is an APR, so you're only talking 1 or 2 months, the interest expense would be nominal. That's for fertilizer, herbicide, fungicide, application charges. And then there was another program that was 0% financing through November 1st for seed purchases. So the input would essentially be purchased for this operation at no cost to the county, for very nominal costs, other than the fact that if this has been done, in a more timely manner, if we could have purchased the inputs at cheaper prices, past the time period when inputs were purchased at a discounted rate. And I did ask the finance gentleman with Nutrien, or the local guy who was talking to the finance man, what would be required, and most likely it would be a credit application, and my guess is you have to sign it, Mr. Chairman.
No, I have to sign everything the board approves to do, so, yeah.
That's if there's not money in the county budget for this, and you need to do this, there's a way, as long as it's legal, where you can finance this operation and the county wouldn't be charged much of anything to do it.
You have the right to borrow, Mr. Chairman?
What's that?
You have the right to borrow, okay? Do we borrow and finance this operation?
Personally, I can.
Why are we discussing?
I don't know what the county's ability in financial terms, I don't know what the county's ability is to borrow money, lean money against a perishable crop. I don't know that.
If you don't mind me interjecting this, why did we make all these hasty decisions about this contract when we don't know if we can finance it, we don't know if we can wait for more money on it, or even go forward on it today? We'll get a little hasty on it.
I think we were. We decided last month we wanted to sell it, wasn't that hasty?
We can sell them. That's legal, we know that.
Well, that hasty, I didn't say it's illegal, I said
No,
hasty, this is legal.
We're going to want to sell it for what?
Funds.
But can we do it? Do we have the right to do it? Do we have the funds to do it? If we can't do it, we'll not do it.
Well, counties have the power to make, quote, this is under the county's code, 1005, paragraph 3, to, quote, make all contracts and do all other acts in relation to the property and concerns of the county necessary to the exercise of its corporate powers.
Did it say borrow? I mean,
They don't spell out every possible thing you have the power to do, and that's why there are cases on just analyzing it. You have the power to purchase and hold real and personal property. Farmland is real property, crops are personal property. They give you the authority to purchase it. And you also have, and this is a quote, you have the county code also authorizes you to, quote, contract and do all other acts in relation to the property.
The county-owned property. That one's just for the public, not private. Not private.
It's for the county's benefit because the county owns
And
it.
the county gets all the income, so why is it not working for the
Farmers
public?
don't make a problem, Farmers not going to privately benefit from this contract.
If they provide an incidental benefit that is not rendered unconstitutional. That's what those cases say, as long as there's some public benefit. Clearly, there's benefits.
That's what their opinion is. Not constitutional, not statute.
That's what the appellate courts have said.
The appellate courts, law firm, they hire.
No, the courts in Illinois.
Don't all of our vendors make money? The guy that works on the elevator, the guy that sells the cars, they all make money?
I'm not gonna debate the legal part.
Yeah.
It's just.
Well, when you want to reference that kind of service and contract, you're talking about doing something to improve a structure or a county property that is in existence, public use.
Okay.
This farm is not in existence, public use. Its existence on its own is not public use.
If you turn it into a park, you'd be great.
So the fact that the public gets the funds does not make it public use?
No.
No.
It's private money.
That's a problem. That is a charge. That is a fee. It's a fee to use the land in a rental situation. This is a situation of we're going to pay somebody to gain a crop that we had to put an investment into.
Well, basically, either way, there needs to be a legal opinion, whether we farm it or whether we sell it. There's got to be a legal opinion.
There's a legal opinion on the selling, I know that. But not the leasing, and possibly not the license. Gary, if you let a room down the courthouse and open up an insurance agency, you can't do that. Because you can't benefit privately on a government property that's owned.
That's what we're doing out here.
Basically, you can't do that. I mean, this is all in the law, this is all in statute. I'm sure you're aware, but it's easy to read the statute to find out what's marginal and getting that kind of income is marginal. It really is. I like to see the
Let's pause this for a second.
There's two questions I have, Gary, this is the most important part of it. A, can we borrow money legally? And two, can we find the money to do the licensing? Licensing sounds like it could be a great deal. Sounds like leasing, but everybody else leases and don't license. So I would say that question, why?
You're saying it'd be okay if we lease it
No, I said it'd be great if we could, but everybody else is doing it the wrong way too.
Okay, so
Which is, that's their fault. That's their fault. So look all the answers. There's two things, licensing and money. Do you have the money to do what you want to do? If not, we're just going to circus it. We don't have money to do it.
I got a question. If you sell it, you gonna have an option share?
So in the
Or are
process,
you gonna list it?
in the process of the sale, this would require a whole other special meeting all its own, and then probably several public hearings to make sure that the entire process is fully vetted between the recommendation of whoever to, as far as if it is to be sold at public auction or if it's to be sold at sealed bid. You know, these are all decisions that all along the way have to be made by the entire board. Quite frankly, the board is a representation of the people that own that land. And that's why I made the reference up front, that we as the board are now going to go into a business and function as the people themselves. And that's why I made that statement. But back to the sale, every step along the way, it would be an extensive process. I wouldn't doubt it would take 3 months to get from a decision to approve a vote to sell the land to actually when there would be a sale date. Just between listing, the advertisement, the appraisal, the title search.
You're gonna pay for advertising, right?
Sure, no private firm.
So that'd be giving money.
Right, so in a sense, no different than the coal mine that was working in Edwards County, that is a specialized service that you have to do to exhaust exhaust the asset. They were exhausting an asset in a coal mine. They had to have specialized service that I'm sure was bid out to whoever wanted to come in and operate their mine. But in this process, we're taking a, quote, personal property that we have to invest into, like I referenced this statute that tells you how you can invest money. So I don't find the parallels to be accurate. That's why I vote the way I do. But there's no doubt that if you choose to sell it, there are things you have to bid, and there's just decisions along the way that the entire board would have to make. But first off, you have to approve the sale. That's first off.
All right, so
Going back to Jesse's question about the offer, if we sell the truck or something, make a newspaper, we still got to pay for
Well, you
it.
make the motion, I'm kind of like Jesse was.
I was just, I wasn't asking a question, but I was.
No, I mean, when you were up here, yes.
Is there any more discussion on the farm management agency agreement? That would be, and this needs to be gone through pretty well extensively because it is a contract and it needs a public hearing.
So you're asking for a motion? Sign it?
No. So, what have we gone through in this contract? Because contracts need a public hearing. Therefore, we need to go through this contract just like we did at the first.
So we can't hire anybody to manage the farm, or raise the farm, take care of the farm, without a public hearing.
We don't have the money here. You can't sign a contract.
No, what I'm saying is to go through this contract.
you're supposed to do that for a meeting.
No, this is the meeting where you go through that. That way they know what's in here.
That's why that's why you need it ahead of time, so you can read it.
No, the public.
I know, you did though.
Yeah,
That's why you should
I'm aware
read it.
of what's in
So we
here.
need to put this on public ballot and get the public opinion.
No, it needs to be briefed. That way everybody knows.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Lynn.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve farm management agreement with the Shelby County State Bank. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Can I get a clarification before the vote as for the public to understand what's going on?
What do you clarify?
Paragraph I, does that give the bank guy the authority to mortgage, pledge on the crops on behalf of the county without obtaining county approval, i.e. borrow money
So like,
from the county property, which is the crops? So it gives the third party the authority to borrow money against county property without board approval. I just want to clarify if that's what that means. I could be wrong, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
so for everybody that's in question of what he's talking about, it says in page 1, agent's powers, you go down to line I, or section I. Agent's powers to sell, mortgage, and pledge the crops, whether growing and unharvested or harvested, livestock and products of said land at the prices and the times fixed by the best judgment to the agent, and to execute and deliver any and all documents necessary or incidental thereto, and to further grant the agent the power and right as a marketing device, any one or any combination of the following. And then basically, it has already been predetermined here that there's items 1 through 9. These items marked below authorize the agent to use a cash sale, a forward contract sale, a basis contract, a hedge to arrive contract, a delay price contract, a store contract, and a cash license agreement. What it does not allow, by the way, these are all pre-selected, is commodity credit loans and options. So the manager would not be able to use options to improve our standing with the market, or commodity credit loan, which I'm not versed in that. So that is what that section says. That is in question.
So does he have the power to borrow? And I have one more question on the paragraph above that. Some of these, and I'm not a farmer, but I know government grants and loans come with grant and loan assurances that are effective for 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50 years. Do any of the applicable agricultural conservation, soil conservation, or other government programs designed to aid and promote agriculture that you're giving him the power of attorney to sign come with any grant assurances that he's going to bind over the county for 25 years? I know if you get a grant for an airport grant, that binds the county for 25 years. Does that paragraph, whether he's going to do it or not, I don't know, does that paragraph that you're giving him as their true and lawful power of attorney authorize him to do that? Or are you going to change that and restrict him from signing anything that would bind the county over to any government agency?
Which paragraph are you on now?
H. You still haven't added I.
Yeah, he's got marked on his list, I. He's not going to borrow money.
Here, Jim, address this. Go ahead.
So, I wouldn't be opposed to changing that paragraph H. The situation is it's irrelevant because municipalities are ineligible for government program payments. So there's no way that I can bind you, this county, in any way because you're not eligible for it. CRP contracts, cost share for, waterways, those kinds of things, municipalities can't receive payment. So that doesn't mean you may not want to change that, I'm just saying it's not relevant.
One more quick question for Jim.
Question for Jim, and then Terry. Go ahead.
Do you have any county or city or municipality customers that have borrowed ahead or on future on any of their crops? Do you know the legal
I
ramifications?
said that earlier, John, I do not know.
So we still haven't found out if we can borrow any of that. And number two, that I keep hammering on, do we have money to go ahead so we can sign these contracts that we all want to sign? Or do we going to sign the contracts and then 6 months now we can't amend the budget, say, we can't go forward now that we're ripping contracts up? Is that how we're going to do business?
Terry, are you saying we can't use the interest-free?
Pardon?
Are you saying the interest-frees are a loan that we cannot use the interest-free?
It's borrowed money. It seems to me it's borrowed money. I'm not sure if the county can borrow money. That's my question.
I'd just like to take this opportunity, Brad Halbrook kind of nailed me at that finance committee because I always jump at Edgar County, that their farm is run illegally also in Edgar County. I want you to know this time I didn't bring it up. I just wanted to clarify that. So Brad, I hope that make a meaning.
But that is also an airport farm, and the airport's authorized on these farm grounds. Although they are paying taxes.
I think we had a legal thing on that.
Are they also, they're all paying taxes though? I read that legal opinion.
But they're not an airport, that's way off topic, but it's not an airport authority.
Anyway, I just wanted Brad to know I took care of it.
And we got the money, that's my question. Do we have the money? Are we going to have to go backwards on the contract? If you're worth tabling just to see if we can do this legally, and if you think we can amend the budget, hey, I'm all for it. Seriously.
The only thing really time sensitive is the crop insurance, because that's a hard line, March 15th deadline.
So we
So
will
that's
not
the
have
only deadline we're
any
working
kind of
at.
guarantee now.
There's no guarantee for the budget
Not
money.
if we table it.
There's $1,600 in the budget.
We don't need the budget money if we take the interest-free money.
If we borrow all the money, put this crop in, basically,
Yeah, because then we've got more.
we're not going to pay the
to get
tenant.
back.
We're not going to pay the tenant until the fall. When the
You
crop
don't have a
comes
choice. You choose not to budget it.
in. I can't hear it.
If you choose not to budget it, right, you don't have a choice.
We can't do anything.
We can't do what?
If we don't have the money, we're going to sign a contract to borrow everything. How do we pay the tenant, Gary? How do we pay to work the ground?
All right, John, we've got a question back here. There is a timeline of discussion. If we're ready to vote, I mean, we just keep asking the same
Can
question.
you answer the question, David?
They just answered it for you,
No, he
John.
didn't.
Yes, they did.
He doesn't know we can borrow money. He doesn't know know where the budget comes from?
I want to tell you one thing right now. When we did the system upgrade, that was discussed to finance it, and we were going to pay interest on it. But we decided to pay the whole thing up front. So it is obviously legal because we were going to do it
Can you
then.
find out what's legal?
Huh?
Can you find out where it's at, it's legal to do it?
We had our choices. I mean, she was in there.
You know where the 85,000 comes from?
They just said they'd carry it for us.
Everything?
0%.
Even the farmer?
The most.
There's going to be 2 years of two payments a year.
Are you
That's all.
gonna pay the farmer to work the ground?
Which is $10,000, it's not 80, it's 10.
Are you gonna pay him?
Unbelievable.
And we have.
So,
Are you gonna pay him?
are we going to vote
We
or
got
not?
either $68,000 or $8,000 in our budget.
It's time to vote. Let's do it.
John, you're worried about something that doesn't matter, but we're going to take the money that we received for the crop that we sell this fall to pay for the inputs. That's part of maybe you not being a farmer, that you don't understand what the guy's financing that.
Who's gonna pay the farmer, Don?
I would probably, any farmer that would like to have this ground, the farmer will be willing to wait till this fall to be paid for his work.
We guarantee that.
I can't guarantee that.
We are by that insurance.
Guarantee it, Don, you can do it.
Guarantee what?
What about the prompt payment?
It's called a question.
Hold on.
The insurance.
I'd like to comment. We had a motion on the floor.
And second.
Yeah.
David.
Glenn made the motion to approve the county farm licensing agreement. Switz did second it. Yeah. We were in discussion, and I would like to make one point before we vote. I made a point in the fall about a committee taking the authority of awarding a contract to a road firm back in the fall. I made a point of that, of the board relinquishing the power. The same is indicated here as authority being relinquished to the outside manager, where we lose authority over the property. There are no provisions for elected officials to relinquish control of property to a non-elected entity. So I still heed caution in this whole process, and if you think time is of the essence and this ground needs to be utilized, if it sits idle for a year, I think the questionable nature of this whole situation, letting the ground sit idle for a year and putting together a sound situation that is unanimous, is going to be the way to go. I'm just saying, the questionable nature of this whole situation, it should sit idle. With that said, any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Mark Bennett.
Okay.
I make a motion, we table this.
Second? No, I do. Got a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion table. Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, I got a
Question.
in regard to
The motion's
if we
on the table.
establish this,
Yeah, this motion's on the table. What's your
would
question?
you call, if we establish this as a precedent, any county, including us, to buy farm ground, and farm it, and profit it?
It's not a precedent until it goes to the appellate court. Like Kendall County is doing it on 2 different contracts, but that's just their own county, it's not on the appellate court.
That's a, establishing something that,
Do the wrong thing, that's a smart thing.
This is the vote to table. That'd be a roll call vote to table.
are, is Lenny's or his?
This is Mark's motion, and John Polk second.
Vote on table.
Earl Baker.
Yes.
What are we voting?
Tabling the approval of the farm licensing, I'm sorry. This is the farm management agreement with the bank. Okay, so earlier, Yes, earlier, to clarify, earlier we voted that we could license the land. This is the agreement with the bank. The vote right now is to table the agreement with the bank. Okay? Roll call, please.
Okay. Earl Baker. Kenny Barr.
No.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Candidate.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
No.
Dennis Durbidge.
No.
Jesse Durbin.
No.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Rod Height.
Yes.
Larry Lenz.
No.
Patrick Lyons.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
No.
Bobby Orman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
No.
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
John Poe.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
No.
Jeff Slifer.
No.
David Switz.
No.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
No.
Okay, I've got 10 ayes to table, 11 nays to none.
Motion fails, so we move on to the motion to approve the farm management agreement with Shelby County State Bank. And there again, we'll take a roll call.
Earl Baker.
No.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
No.
Paul Candidate.
No.
Brian Kaufman.
Due to possible conflict of interest, I will not vote.
Abstain.
Dennis Durbidge.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Bring up.
Rod Height.
No.
Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Patrick Lyons.
This is to approve the license. No. For farm management, farm management.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Orman.
No.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Derek Piercy.
No.
John Poe.
Nope.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yes.
Don Tate.
No.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Okay, so I have, wait a second. Oh, Jesse, no, I called Jesse. Oh, Brian Kaufman, so it's 10-10, yeah, with Brian abstaining.
Motion failed. Dead tie.
I do believe that we can still enter into a insurance contract in case we do decide to have this planted. I would think it would be to our benefit as a county to go ahead and do that. Won't be any charge if we cancel it. If we do decide to proceed in a different direction on any of this, I think it would be wise for the county to go into that, just to cover our bases on the possible everything.
Not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, I'm just saying it's something we might want to do.
Yeah, well. All right.
Well, I think the crop insurance is on the agenda for the life, through the agreement with Jim now.
No, that's part of
That's part of what the county agreed to do. The agreement.
That would be. So we just approved it after the work.
There's things that.
Order, please. Up next, we'd like to talk about the payment of the county farm taxes.
I was saying that the payment of the taxes is within the documents that were on the agenda. If you don't get the crop insurance by March 15th, that's a hard deadline, there's no extension on it. And it sounds like the application is free of cost.
It is. I mean, I did do that for a landowner yesterday. I don't know which way we're going with it. We will pull whichever one needs to be pulled without,
So without having a board decision, who is the caretaker of that? Me? So I'm going to put my pen to paper without board approval. I'm in question of that. The licensing agreement is what we have approved. Guess I'll have to find that myself, but anyway, let's move on. I'm duly noted.
I think it would be in the best interest of our county to do that. Cover all bases at this time. So it gives, we've got a license of agreement, and it's doing that, you can do that, because you are taking care of the license agreement.
That's where we're going.
Okay, so let's Jeff.
Anyway, we need differs. We need to get this done. The county will be the beneficiary if there is a claim, so it don't matter who farms it or when we get it farmed. So I follow Brian here. We better get that done.
50% of us disagree with the guys.
We're going to cripple the guy that's going to try to farm it next year.
I'd love to tell you, but they're not.
Okay, all this is...
Please look into it, please, Bobby.
All this is considered, right. Payment of the county taxes, let's move on out to 10. Monday, March 15th.
I'll get a name to you.
Insurance agency, either Equity there in Windsor, with Greg Baja, or Fred Smith, either one of them could do fine.
Okay. All right.
There's
Premiums, there's no premium until the end of the year. You can cancel or note anytime. You're not on the hook, because if you do not plan anything, there's nothing to insure. That's a big zero. There's no premium. But if you do plant something, you have it covered at the base price we have now. If you wait till after the 15th, you cannot get any coverage. So now you're back to no safety net, no nothing. I'm just saying, in the best interest of the county, we need to make sure we get that done if at all possible.
Is it a contract? If at all possible, we will work through it. I want to get into this tax discussion. We need to get this decided and figured out. Like I said, the insurance implications duly noted in will be taken into consideration. Please.
With respect to the taxes, I provided a written opinion. The appellate prosecutor also contracts with a private firm that I contacted, and they provided a written opinion, which everyone should have a copy of. It's Giffen, Winnie, Cohen, and Bodie's from Springfield. They contract with the Illinois Appellate Prosecutor's Office, so this is an opinion from them that is basically from the Appellate Prosecutor's Office. I agree with it. I was ready to present this last month, and then it was tabled. Their opinion and my opinion is that the county is responsible for the tax payment that are past due, because there has never been in any lease agreement in the past 40 years an obligation of the tenant to pay those taxes. The person's never been put under notice that he was liable for it, so there's no sort of contract claim to be made against the person. They never expected, and we never expected them to pay the taxes on it. We've always paid them for the last 40-some years. Right now, 1 year, but they're going to come due again for last year, so that's going to be the same opinion. Anything past due, it's my opinion, and it's also the opinion of this firm that contracts with the appellate prosecutor, that the county is liable for it. There is a section under the Property Code 35 ILCS 2200/9-1 195, that when property is exempt from taxation and leased to someone, the leasehold estate can be taxed and the tenant can be held liable. Problem is, we didn't do that. We didn't have the tenant listed as the person or the party to be taxed.
How many dollars are we talking?
Roughly $5,700, I believe, that's due for last year. It's about $5,700. That was not done, so the county is the owner, the county was billed, the leasehold interest was never listed, assessed, or taxed to the tenant. So those would be the two mechanisms underneath. You can make a tenant pay, and then those apply here. Plus, even if we could show that he's liable, and my opinion is we cannot show the tenant is liable, that he's not liable. If we were to go to court to try to enforce this and make the tenant pay, we would do that under 35 ILCS 200/21-16, and that addresses this exact situation. If he were liable and he refused to pay for the taxes, then the state's attorney is authorized to go into court and bring a cause of action against him in circuit court. And upon proof of liability, the court would order the lessee to pay a sum equal to the full amount of delinquent taxes, interest, penalties, and costs. But the problem is, and I don't know why this situation exists, that statute which would permit us to recover that money only applies to counties with more than 800,000 inhabitants but fewer than 1 million. So it only applies to DuPage County right now. It does not apply to Shelby County or any other county. I looked and observed that last year a Senate bill was proposed that would amend the statute to include all the counties, to include Shelby, but that's not been voted on. So right now, even if we could show that the tenant was liable, there's no mechanism to go to court to require him to pay these past due taxes. And again, he's not liable, in my opinion, nor in the firm that I consulted with, in their opinion either. So that's been an issue that's been going on, I know, for some period of time, but it's my opinion that the tenant is not liable for those taxes.
I make a motion to pay the taxes.
Second on the motion. Discussion?
What fund will this come out of to pay?
Comes out of the general fund.
Will it come out of Ross's pocket?
Yep, that comes out of
Thanks, Ross.
their pocket. They pay the taxes on this one. All this, everybody up there, everybody up here, it comes out of your pocket to pay the taxes on this.
What happens if you don't pay?
Nothing.
Why pay?
Right. Motion on.
So, I'm not calling the vote, they've just started discussion. One point I'd like to make for this is, the parallels that have been made among court cases and statutes. If a judge can approve of certain things, why couldn't a judge make a declaration that neither the county as an exempt entity and the tenant, which would be being penalized, and I agree, the tenant is not on the hook for the taxes. I would contest highly that the county's on the hook for the taxes, and it should be gone away, and then the tax exemption should be reinstated. I would like to know, one other question I have with this is, when the poor farm was abolished by the legislature, at the time it would have been a public use parcel. What happened? What was the process in which the county went through to obtain the taxes? What happened there? That's a question I have.
Can I address that just quickly?
John?
As far as the assessment part, this is what I read in the statute. There is a loophole, or whatever you want to call it, that says the assessor can reverse his opinion, his or her opinion, on that assessment, and by actual giving of a certificate of reversing that assessment by erroneous reasons, that we can flip that tax. I brought that up at the last two meetings. I've got it in my packet from the last committee meeting, and I think Derek has it also, that the assessor can actually reverse that decision. Did anybody read that?
I've read a lot of stuff.
It's the fact that they erroneously assessed the county instead of the tenant. Even though the tenant may not have known it, the county should have known it and should have taxed the farmer.
Right.
That doesn't have to go through this long process to get it straightened out. Derek's probably got the answer.
So,
Looking at it.
Derek,
Well, I don't know. All right, well, all right, I guess I gotta preface this, I'm not a lawyer by any means, but, the good news is, you really don't have to be. Most of this stuff is in state law. 55 ILCS is county code. You guys can go there and read it, anybody. I hope everybody here has read that. That's something I did before I was ever here, is read that thing front to back. There's not a lot of wiggle room outside of that. Now, as far as taxes, you gotta get to 35 ILCS, so it does require a little bit of back and forth. It's a little tricky there. Now, the law firm that provided the opinion, they did leave one part out, though, on 35 ILCS 215-60. So they referenced the second half of that. The first part that they left out said taxing district property, all property belonging to any county or municipality used exclusively for the maintenance of the poor is exempt. I talked with our assessor on that too, and she said that there was never any exemptions filed on this property for removing the taxes off of it. But I'm going to kind of pose the opposite question. If state law said it was already exempt, is there anything that says that exemption was removed? I haven't been able to come up with anything. She's not aware of anything. A lot of the stuff dates back so far that there's not much record, to be honest. So it seems that the exemption that was applied was never removed off of it, as it was a poor farm. So in 1917, they changed it to be called county homes. And then in 1967, that act was repealed, if everybody was aware of that. And if you look at the tax bill, there's something kind of interesting on here. It says county homes on the tax bill, if you guys have read these. That implies that this tax bill was sent, or started to be sent to whoever it was at the county, or the county homes prior to 1967, which probably should have been exempt still at that point, unless they started farming it out prior to 1967. I don't know the answer to that one. The double taxation problem, I think I come up with a way to explain. Somebody referenced paying out of district, which is a secondary problem I didn't even consider. But so when you receive your tax bill, it says, I'm just going to go off of this one. The amount that you owe to Lakeland College is going to be $413, right? Okay, that's part of my tax bill. We're going to take, and the general fund will pay $560 into that. We're going to take 10 of this. We're all going to pay this total amount, right? So we've contributed $5,600 into the general fund. We've each contributed $413 to Lakeland College, for example, okay? That's how much we were supposed to pay Lakeland College. The problem that you get into, and Ms. Bernier, correct me if I missed anything here, is that we've all paid that $5,600, 10 of us, into that. We've now pulled that back out, and we're paying taxes again. Now, 100% of that doesn't go back to the general fund. That gets divided out and around again, so I'm paying, and since there's 10 of us, I'm paying another $41 to Lakeland College. I was only supposed to pay $413. So I don't know if I can explain it any better than that, but I'm paying that same tax to these different districts twice when you're using it that way. So, and I guess I'll still reference state constitution again. The public funds, which would be in the general fund, can only be used for a public purpose. I don't think that falls into that category.
To reiterate what he was saying, without the numbers, basically, I said without the numbers, I want to use numbers. If the county's a $30 million tax base, so we'll just take 3 and drop $1 million off. We take 20 million, and we put them into the taxing bodies, with 103 taxing bodies. We're going to distribute that out. We're going to put the other into the general fund. That $32 million is taxes of everyone's taxes. So everyone puts in to the general fund. What he's saying is, when the general fund pays the taxes, they split those taxes out again. So, the dollar that you put in gets split out across the taxing bodies again. But here again, 3 to 1. So that's the double taxation, and then when you have people that live in district, they pay the same $3 in, and then turn right around and they get hammered again. So they pay twice, and the people in district get double taxation. The people out of district get taxation without representation. That's where that conversation goes. Any other discussion?
No, that was very accurate, though, thank you.
Obviously, I'm opposed to paying taxes. Any other discussion? Spending money? I suggest we call a roll call vote. All in favor of approving the county farm taxes, answer with yes.
Earl Baker.
No.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
No.
Paul Candidate.
No.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Dennis Turnovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
No.
Rod Height.
No.
Larry Lenz.
Yeah.
Patrick Lyons.
No.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Warman.
No.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Piercy. John Poe. Robert Simpson.
Yeah.
Jeff Slifer.
No.
David Switz.
Yes.
Don Tate.
No.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Okay, I have 10 ayes and 11 nays. Motion fails.
Motion to pay the county farm tax. With that, we'll move on to committee reports. Anybody have to start with? Anyone start with?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the dive team. I don't know if, and they've had it for years and years and years. But I will be asking later on at some time for everybody to approve some money to help pay for a truck for them. And that's all I have.
Just on a note on that squad, I'm pro dive team and pro rescue squad.
I know you are.
Okay. Rescue squad, if I'm correct, at the time, raised money, the guys volunteered themselves, they raised their own money to buy that provide. As far as I know, there's no tax dollars used to pay that provide. And there may be some tax dollars that keep it, and it is money.
I have a question. Why can't they take over the EMA vehicle that's been sitting there since mid-August?
Grant?
I asked you.
I don't know. I'm going to ask the chairman here if we could look at, I don't know what agency or what department or what committees to look into that. That would be a great idea, Brian, to give them that EMA vehicle.
Good job, Des.
We've been here.
You give the dive team sheriff's vehicle.
Right, yeah.
So, I guess a question on the EMA vehicle, was that a grant funded thing, or was that a?
No, that was bought by the Enbridge Pipeline Company for EMA when they went through with the big pipeline on the west side of the county. I was involved in that a little bit.
So that would have been a grant.
But it wasn't a grant, no, it was from
It's a
a
donation.
private company.
They donated.
Donated. So a donation could be.
No, I suppose it could be put anywhere now, probably.
Yes, Jeff.
I want to speak on behalf of the animal control. Just for a heads up, transparency, we're going to buy a new truck, and it's not, repeat, not coming out of the general funds. It's out of his money, our animal control's money.
Special funds. Special funds?
Yes. And what the question would be, according to statutes, the county
determines what happens to the used vehicle. It's up to us. We need to get it at surplus. The county can put it on bids, trade it in. I'll wait to put this on the agenda, but I just wanted you to think about that. But when you put it on bids, that money goes back into the general fund. When you trade it in, that's the same as putting money back into animal control's account. So what I'm asking you is to think about where you want that money to go. The approximate trade-in value is $10,000.
Did you get the response? The question we asked her,
Yes.
do you have the response off the top of your head?
I got it right here.
Do you want to go through that, her response, or
Well, basically
is it
what
her?
it said.
Is it her to the?
Oh. 55 LCS 55-1015 provides the county board may take and have care and possess custody of all the real and personal estate owned by the county. So the county board decides how the property is disposed of. According to the county clerk's office, there is no resolution, ordinance, policy adopted by the county board as it applies to disposal of larger items like vehicles. Past practice has been for the board to declare the property as surplus and then accept competitive bids. Listing as surplus and accepting bids is what the state is required to do by statute with the surplus materials and equipment. So I believe the past practice exercised by Shelby County is consistent with the law. If the vehicle to be purchased exceeds $30,000, which depending on trade-in or disposed of, it would be for competitive bid. Where the, oh wait a minute, let me read that again, I apologize. If the vehicle to be purchased exceeds $30,000 in cost, it should be listed for competitive bid regardless where a vehicle is traded in. So either.
So that basically says no matter what we do.
We could use it as trade-in or put it on competitive bid, it's ours to dispose of.
Can we move it within the county?
Yes.
Yeah, this is committee work. He's just bringing this to the, so everybody knows that this is what the committee's looking at. And working on putting the numbers together.
This will be on next year's budget too.
On next year's budget.
So we're just trying to get our ducks in a row ahead of time.
Terry.
Wanted to talk about the zoning, or Bob can pitch in when he wants there, but Gary was here earlier, Gary Townsend, but I think we wore him out. And that happened. But I want to say something. Gary has done a really good job in a month's time catching up permits. The stumbling block has come in the 911 addresses. And I don't know if, evidently he's not here, I don't know who he is, but there's a guy at Cowden that they can't get a mortgage loan until they have a 911 address. And we seem to have fallen on deaf ears getting one out of Christian County. Jared used to do this himself, but he turned it over to them when he left because there wasn't nobody to do it. And Gary has been super about saying it's really not our job, it's EMA to do it, EMA to do it. But as Gary said, if we don't get this going, the people aren't going to get their house to build and stuff like that. So we've really run into a stumbling block, and I'm open to any suggestions what we can do to get this done, to get a 911 address to these two locations that they can't borrow the money till they have that address.
Terry, real quick. So I sit on 911 boards.
Yep.
Per this board. The EMA directors that were involved or discussed in our last meeting, it sounded like EMA directors will move to another county to help them out in a state of emergency.
Right.
Well, I would venture to guess if you asked for a favor or asked for help, they would either talk you through it, or I mean, I pulled information from Moultrie County and Effingham County both, and both are very helpful and such, so.
Right.
I would reach out to them, and they may be able to help.
Gary's been in contact with Nikki. He
Sure.
sent me a text today.
And in her defense, I think she's about 2 people short right now,
Right.
so.
Right. But we are working on it. The people that are complaining, I don't blame them one bit for complaining.
No,
This has cost them a fortune in OSB board by delaying their construction. Yeah, Gary?
Coles County set up our 911 address. We hired them to develop our system,
Right.
and we paid them to help. I would say check with Coles County and see, you know, it'd be very simple for them to look at the map and give you the house
Right.
numbers.
But they do it off their phone, off that longitude, latitude, and they stand in the driveway. The driveway has to be formed for them to do this.
You have to go to the driveway because if you use road number,
Right.
it may not match up to the house.
Right.
That is a very complicated,
Right.
we got roads that don't go north and south, east and west, and it's a real mess out there to get the right number. Coles County should be able to help you with that.
Okay, I'm gonna check on that. Other than that, zoning is,
I spoke with her yesterday over Fisher County, and she said she's the one that's got to do that, put it in. That Coles County, you can't do that now, they can it over, you know.
Right, because.
We're in with them, and we're paying them money.
And one, right.
Well, she said she already talked to Gary, but then Gary told Gary that they kind of giving him a runaround over it. And I said, well, I can go down there, it's not our job, but I can go down there on the phone and put the GPS in. He said, well, I need to know if the driveway's been put in or not.
We have a lot of side conversations. Everybody, please quiet down. Mr. Simpson is talking, and it is important that we all hear him. Please.
And she said, I need to know if the driveway's put in. Well, I found out today that the driveway's been in, the culvert's in, and everything. And then Gary's got the GPS coordinates, but he tried to give it to her, but he didn't get nowhere. So I don't know what's going on. I said, I offered to go down there and do the same thing, but he didn't say that'd be okay.
this seems to be stopped.
And she
And
may
we
be
got
back
one
on
more,
board,
right?
I get to it yet.
You're right.
It may,
Danny?
I don't want to speak for it. I don't want to speak for it.
We got another case too in North Lakewood, the same way.
Yeah, I imagine there's going to be a few of those. I would like to say hats off to the zoning committee that are getting after the business they have. They've done a good job. Any other committees like to speak?
I've got a bit of good news. At the Regional Office of Education, they announced that in December, we should have the building rebuilt. They use at Charleston rebuilt for the purpose of regional office.
The ROE building?
Pardon? The ROE.
Wow, that's a big building.
Should be paid off in December. And that should work.
Any other committee reports?
I get abbreviated on the sheriff's department. I think this was in the papers earlier, but our meeting on the 4th, we did give out life savings awards to the people who participated in getting the lady out that her car went into the pond north of Shelbyville. And 2 deputies, Deputy Brandt and Deputy Duger, were both at the meeting with the families, and they got certificates and awards that day. And the city of Shelbyville officer was recognized that he was out of town, but it was all to do with that event there. And they're going to start, basically the merit committee will vote when something special happens, and then they'll give awards to people, and this was the first award to people. And they have received their WEX cards, and they're using them to purchase gas at the places that they were having to pay taxes before. And now that now that the weather's changed, they will continue on with installing a fuel tank at the county shed. The sheriff's department and the merit commission are looking at an outside company to work on their recruiting and their hiring and their testing of employees to basically make that more efficient and to hopefully come up with better applicants. The jail population is currently, or that day was currently at 23. There's 2 awaiting transfer. The rest of them are all in different statuses in Shelby County. And the last thing is the Sheriff's Department and the State's Attorney's Office are going to start putting out a lot more press releases because there's a lot going on. That's why the detention center is full, and they're going to start making that a lot more public of what they're doing and what type of things are happening and the reason that our jail's full. So they're going to start putting out more press releases, and that's coming from Nicole's office and from the Sheriff's Department both.
That's good.
And that's all very good, all of it.
Mr. Chairman, I think in lieu of the deputies' life-saving efforts, that we all ought to give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Denny. Any further committee reports? I've gone through chairman updates. Now we'll move on to chairman appointments. Looking for a motion to appoint Robert Hemmer to the trustee Moequa Fire District. A trustee to Moequa Fire. I'll make a motion. Rod Hart makes a motion.
Second.
Brian Coffin seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'd like to appoint Earl Baker as chairman of the EMA committee.
Mr. Chairman, if you never consider another committee, there's no need to do that.
Well, there's business that needs to be conducted until that happens. I had Paul Canada on the motion. Gary's in a second. All in favor of Earl Baker, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any correspondences? We've filled up with a lot of correspondences. Up next is the approval of the claims. I have a motion to approve the claims account. John Tate makes the motion to approve. Pat Lang seconds. Any discussion? Was there anything on the committee? What was that purchasing committee? Any of those committees have any questions, issues? All in favor to approve the bills paid, say yes, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Earl Baker.
Yes.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Canady.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Dennis Cernovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Rod Height.
Yes.
Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Patrick Lyons.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Warman. Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Kersey.
Yes.
John Hogue.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yep.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, one on the very end of the agenda is public body comment. I'd like to open it up for
Point of order, you don't have 3 public body comment periods on the agenda,
public body comment is on the agenda.
not 3 of them.
True.
You've already had 2.
Stan, we have 2 public body comments, both have been exhausted.
I got a month to work up a good math.
So, motion to adjourn. Matt Lyons, Mark Van Sack, all in favor, say aye.